Chapter 216. Kick this woman out immediately. Don't let any random people step into my courtyard in the future. Arbor said sternly. Why yes, little master. Yes. Chang Zai was truly scared silly. This little master's style of telling people to scram at the slightest disagreement was truly frightening. There were not many masters in the Chow family, and they were all amiable. It was rare to encounter such a good master. Even the servants' meals were so good, so how could he possibly want to leave? In the current world, where could a powerless person like him go even if he scrammed out of the Chow family? Chang Zai flopped in front of Wen Ruan and said coldly, Miss Wen, please. Aunt! A trace of panic appeared on Wen Ruan's face. She truly did not expect that damn girl Arbor would have such a strong reaction to her appearance. Wen Ruan was filled with hatred. She knelt on the ground and shuffled a few steps before sobbing beside elderly Lady Chow's legs. Aunt! She did not want to leave this place. She had racked her brains to finally move into the Chow estate yesterday. The living conditions of the Chow estate truly moved her. She was no longer willing to return to that shed area filled with pigs, cows, and sheep. You're too impudent and rude. Elderly Lady Chow struggled to get up from the round-backed chair. I thought I made it very clear to grandmother that day. Arbor stared at elderly Lady Chow with eyes that could shatter ice shards. If grandmother doesn't understand, I don't mind repeating myself. If grandmother wants to live with your niece, I'll immediately send someone to escort you to the Western District. Chang Zai, invite Mr. Zhang over. Elderly Lady Chow instantly froze. Arbor's furious expression frightened elderly Lady Chow. She also did not expect Ruan to be so disrespectful to the little girl. She did not even bother to be polite and directly ordered someone to chase Wen Ruan away. Chow is back. What's wrong? Her parents and second uncle, who had rushed over after hearing the commotion, looked at the scene in astonishment. Wen Ruan was gentle and soft, and even her voice was soft. They did not know why she had a conflict with Jojo. Why aren't you chasing her out? If she doesn't leave, you leave. Arbor angrily reprimanded with an unyielding attitude. Chang Zai got up and tugged at Wen Ruan. I've offended Miss Wen. Impudent, too impudent. Granny Chow was so angry that her limbs were trembling. Ah, big brother Chow, second brother Chow, sister Zichin. Wen Ruan trembled from anger and fear. She didn't expect that damn girl Arbor to be so determined to kick her out. She struggled with all her might and shook off Chang Zai's arm. She scrambled over to Wei Zichin's side and hugged her leg as she cried, Sister Zichin, save me, save me. Jojo, child, what's wrong with you? Wei Zichin was astonished. She had never seen her daughter so angry before. She really did not understand how Wen Ruan was not to her liking. It's not appropriate for your Aunt Wen to live alone in the shack area. She managed to escape with much difficulty yesterday and was almost. She couldn't listen to a single word of her father's nagging. She only knew that no one could understand the pain in her heart. No one knew. Everyone felt that Wen Ruan was innocent and stood against her. Everyone felt that she was arrogant and cold despite her young age. Everyone looked at her with incomprehensible gazes. Fighting alone was truly too tiring and too lonely. Suddenly, a pair of hands scooped Xiao Mu up and silently pried off her pinky fingers, which had sunk into her palms to the point of bleeding. Chapter 217. Be good. You don't have to deal with her directly even if you want to, Mo Lien whispered into Chao Ran's ear while carrying her. He nodded at his parents in Arbor very naturally and left with Chao Ran. Chao Zhongbang and his wife took a while to react. That youth with an extraordinary bearing and peerlessly handsome face was. He actually carried away his daughter right in front of their eyes. His movements looked practiced and natural, so it wasn't his first time, right? Wen Ruan, who was kneeling in front of Wei Zichin, felt aggrieved and humiliated. However, all her negative emotions instantly flew away when she met the child's chilling gaze. All that was left was a heart full of coldness and fear. Those were a pair of eerie and indifferent eyes. The child was lying on Prince Mo's shoulder. Her dark eyes were as cold as the spring in the depths of the realm of innocence, devoid of any signs of life. "You will die." She didn't know why, but a cold and magnetic voice seemed to explode in her mind, and she suddenly swayed a few times from the impact. Her eyes widened, and when Rowan felt her vision darken, she suddenly fainted and fell to the ground. "Hello, uncle, auntie." Duan Yu chuckled and walked up to greet Xiao Zhongbang and the others. "I'm Jojo's good friend, Duan Yu. You can call me Aiwe." Wei Ziqin and the others nodded with a smile when they saw this handsome youth enthusiastically greeting them. Even Xiao Zhongbang, who wanted to move when Rowan, stopped and exchanged a few words with the youth. Duan Yu said as if he was familiar with them, "Although I don't know who this woman is, I'm pretty sure that Jojo is Jojo. Based on my understanding of little Jojo, she won't fly into a rage for no reason. I feel that there must be a reason for everything. What do you think?" Wei Ziqin immediately nodded. Although she also felt that her daughter's rage came extremely strangely and suddenly, she believed in her daughter. This child had been sensible since she was young and always thought of her family. Even when facing a beggar, she was polite and distant. How could she treat Rowan like this? Xiao Zhongbang smacked his lips and exchanged glances with second Uncle Qiao. This time, he didn't know whether he should go and help Rowan, who was lying on the ground. "I'm going to see my daughter." Wei Ziqin left in a hurry. After Crown Prince Mo carried darling Qiao back to her boudoir, he naturally sat down next to the window with her in his arms. He placed the child on his lap and stared at her expressionless face. She didn't say anything, so he accompanied her in silence. After an unknown amount of time, the child's body moved slightly. He lowered his head and said in a muffled voice, "You. Why are you talking to me? I am a cold and temperamental man." "Nonsense." Prince Mo reached out and grabbed her little face. "Come, look at me." The little stoic glared at him with an icy expression for quite a while, but her heart warmed slightly. Mo Lien smiled and asked in a low voice, "Did you see anything?" "You're beautiful. You're one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen," the child answered seriously. Mo Lien, why did he feel like he didn't know whether to laugh or cry? And what the heck was one of the most? Who was the second or third? Was it Duan Yu? He simply lifted her higher and pressed his forehead against hers as he chuckled softly. "Not that. I'm asking if you saw anything in my eyes." "Eyes?" The stoic child nodded. "They're even more beautiful than Duan Yu's." Mo Lien, fine, he should be happy. In this little fellow's eyes, he was very good-looking. Hui Feng, who was hiding in the shadows, couldn't help but facepalm. How could His Highness the Crown Prince and the child's conversation be so funny? Chapter 218. I want you to see that trust is written all over my eyes. Prince Mo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He reached out to hold her little face. "No matter what you do, I'll believe you. No matter what you want to do, I'll stand by your side," Mo Lien said softly as he pressed against her little head. "So, you're not alone. Next time, don't show that 'I'm so lonely' expression, because it hurts my heart to see it. I want her to die." The child pursed her lips and subconsciously clenched her fists. "My mother will give birth in 2 months at most. I can't let her live past these 2 months." Mo Lien loosened her fingers one by one, took out a bottle of top-quality medicinal powder, and applied it on the tiny wounds on her palms. 3 days. The child looked up at Mo Lien with a trace of unconcealable shock in her eyes. Shijiao City's Thousand Flower Festival is in 2 days. This time, City Lord Gu received so much food, she'll definitely. Mo Lien whispered into her ear. The child stared at him blankly. Wasn't this young and handsome crown prince treating her too well? She had a strange feeling in her heart. She had never seen someone so obedient to her in her 2 lifetimes. Even that pervert who doted on her so much in her previous life only doted on her like she was a small animal. He didn't trust or respect her at all. Was this what friends were like? They fought zombies together, collected food together, and now they were killing a person together. It probably wasn't anything to be surprised about. Don't you think I'm cruel, merciless, and vicious? Emolien reached out to cover her little mouth and leaned close to her face. You're my JoJo. You'll always be the best. Arbor blinked and thought, I also think I'm not bad. JoJo, can mother come in? Wei Ziqin was standing outside the door. When she heard the whispers coming from inside the room, she was somewhat dumbfounded. Although her daughter was still young and there weren't that many rules between men and women, why did she feel like she had inexplicably gained a son-in-law when this youth directly entered her room? No, how old was her JoJo? The door opened, and a young man in a white robe fluttered like a cloud. He bowed to her and said politely, Auntie, sorry to disturb you. My name is Emolien, JoJo's best friend. Xiao Emo, who wouldn't like such a handsome and gentle boy? Wei Ziqin immediately smiled. Classmate Xiaoma fiercely increased his presence and favorability in front of his future mother-in-law. After chatting for a while, Wei Ziqin almost forgot about the matter of seeing her daughter. Arbor was a little stunned. He looked speechlessly at the two people who were chatting at the door. It was Prince Emo who reminded Wei Ziqin to give some space to the mother and daughter. Only then did Wei Ziqin send him off with a smile. She held JoJo's hand as soon as she entered the house and showered him with praises. I don't know which family's son is from. He's young and elegant. He's really well raised. Looking at her daughter's confused face, Wei Ziqin remembered the important matter. Good child, mother didn't understand what happened just now. Can you tell mother about it? Mother knows that my daughter isn't such a rude person. Something must have happened. Mother. Arbor's eyes stung. She buried her head in Wei Ziqin's arms. I'm sorry, mother. Your daughter embarrassed you just now. Although she knew why she was angry, her mother and the others didn't know. Perhaps in their eyes, it was really a child's willful and reckless nonsense. They didn't know what happened in their previous lives. What reason did she have to blame someone who didn't know anything? How could that be? You're such a silly child. Wei Ziqin hugged her daughter. You're so worried at such a young age. Chapter 219. Wei Ziqin looked at her daughter and pulled her small hand. Actually, I was the one who brought your Auntie Wen back. I bumped into her on the street when I went out yesterday. She was being chased and bullied by two bullies in West City and was in a very sorry state, Wei Ziqin said. Mother thought that it must be quite difficult for a girl like her to be alone. She has a soft personality and doesn't even dare to speak loudly. At that time, she was in tears and kept begging me to take her in, so mother's heart softened. Is it because mother didn't handle this properly? JoJo, what happened just now? Why did you react so strongly? Arbor buried her head in her mother's embrace and shook her head. She said in a muffled voice, Mother, it's nothing. I just don't like outsiders coming into our family. Silly girl. Mother wants you to be happy. Since you don't like Rowan. Wei Ziqin smiled and hugged her daughter while patting her back. Xiao Mu could no longer hear what Wen Rowan said, and she gradually sank into her own thoughts. In reality, she originally did not want to deal with Wen Rowan, so Xiao Mu ignored this woman when they met in front of the city lord's estate. As long as Wen Rowan obediently stayed far away from the Qiao family, she could not be bothered to waste energy on such a small character and did not mind letting this little white flower go. But now, it seemed that the gears of fate would never stop turning. This Wen Rowan had quietly gotten close to their home again and insisted on making her presence known. Since Wen Rowan insisted on asking for a beating, then don't blame her for being vicious and merciless. This woman would not live for more than 3 days anyway. Arbor did not attend dinner with the excuse that she was not feeling well. She also did not bother to look at that pretentious little white flower. No matter how much she tried to make her presence known, she was already a dead person. There was no need to argue with her. On the other hand, when Shaolin heard that her older sister had returned, she kept clamoring to have dinner with her older sister and was very lively. Wei Ziqin had no choice but to send her younger daughter to Arbor. The next day, Arbor received an invitation to the City Lord's mansion's banquet and gladly accepted it. City Lord Gu was exceptionally happy with the bountiful harvest from this trip to Qinghe town. Especially since His Highness the Crown Prince was willing to honor him with his presence at the banquet, City Lord Gu was so excited that he spoke incoherently the entire night. All the survivors of the Qinghe town operation attended this banquet. However, Arbor didn't see Lu Yexin at the banquet. She didn't ask about it either. After all, Lu Yexin was just a passerby who had nothing to do with her. Halfway through the banquet, the Crown Prince left with Xiao Mu in his arms. City Lord Gu hurriedly followed after them. Everything is in the warehouse on the east side. Please follow me, Your Highness. City Lord Gu said respectfully. Hidden Flower and He Tian followed and looked at each other. His Highness really cares a lot about this little girl. Gu Qingfeng ordered someone to open the storeroom. The little girl's eyes lit up when she saw the supplies piled up inside. Previously, they had used up more than half of their bows and arrows in Qinghe town. Now, there were twice as many weapons in the storehouse. It was just the right time to replenish their previous consumption. The Crown Prince turned to Gu Qingfeng and said, "You can leave first." Gu Qingfeng repeatedly agreed. He was extremely glad that he had befriended this little ancestor. After bowing, Gu Qingfeng said to Xiao Mu with a smile before leaving, "Miss Qiao's reward for this trip will be sent to your residence tomorrow. Your Highness, this humble subject will take his leave first." Chapter 220. The Crown Prince only put down our dear Arbor after everyone retreated and only the two of them remained. Our dear Xiao Mu pattered to the pile of items and browsed through them in a good mood. Other than weapons, there were also many household items and ladies' silks and satins. There were also many small snacks like candied fruits, sweets, pastries, and so on. It was perfect to coax a foodie. It was simply perfect. Arbor chatted with the sapling for a bit before taking out the heart of paradise and putting everything inside. When she looked again, the paradise was nearly stuffed to the brim. There were so many things that it made her feel at ease. The little stoic stiffly pulled out a unique smile, which made a certain Crown Prince unable to restrain a smile. Masta. A white figure flashed, and the little white squirrel pounced out of the paradise and sprawled on Arbor's small face. She was so angry that she spat out a mouthful of fur several times. After plucking the little white squirrel from her face, Arbor unceremoniously flung it outside. Screech, the little white squirrel nimbly somersaulted in midair, but before it could pounce back to its little master's side, a certain Crown Prince reached out and grabbed it. His Highness the Crown Prince swayed a certain little squirrel as his phoenix eyes narrowed meaningfully. This seemingly ordinary little critter seemed to be. Screech, 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 screech. The little white squirrel humanely hugged its head with its paws and curled up into a ball. Masta, there's a terrifying youth here who wants to attack Chirpy. The Crown Prince. His cries were so mournful that those who didn't know would think he had done something deranged. The child pattered to the Crown Prince's side and raised her small hand. His Highness the Crown Prince naturally interpreted it as the child wanting a hug, so he bent down slightly and picked her up. Arbor. Something felt off. Masta. The little white squirrel immediately jumped into her arms and rolled around. Give me 10 pieces of high-grade magnetite. The child poked the white squirrel's round body. The little white squirrel responded and jumped into the paradise, quickly carrying 10 mystic stones out. The child casually put away the heart of paradise. After skinning off the skins of the 10 pieces of magnetite, the little critter chirped twice at Arbor. The Crown Prince stared blankly until the child pushed all the magnetite into his arms. Only then did he regain his senses. His exquisite features seemed to be glowing as he smiled and said, "They're all for me." The child nodded expressionlessly. "Jojo, you're the best." Prince smiled as he approached her. It seemed a little too close. Arbor's eyes widened as he watched the crown prince's handsome face magnify in front of him. Until a soft kiss landed on her forehead. Like a gentle breeze, it slowly swept over. "A gift for Jojo in return," the crown prince said with a serious face. Without waiting for the child to react, he carried the silly little thing and strode out of the storeroom. It seemed that something was very wrong. These words floated in Arbor's mind that he gave her a bunch of things, and she gave him high-grade magnetite in return. That's strange. Aren't they even now? Then, he gave her a gift in return. Wasn't he giving her too much in return? The youth was at a disadvantage. Xiaomu thought for a moment, then took out a few storage talismans from her pocket and stuffed them into his hands. "Use them." Hidden Flower, who was standing by the door, almost dropped his jaw. Why did he feel that the child's tone was so generous? The strangest thing was that his master actually kissed the little fellow's forehead repeatedly as if no one else was around. He even asked with a serious face, "Is this enough for a gift in return?" The child was dumbfounded. They were even again. His Highness was so shameless. Hidden Flower raised his hand to rub his nose, although he didn't know what the two were doing inside. But looking at the child's dumbfounded expression, she must have been black-bellied by His Highness. Chapter 221. When the two returned to the banquet, the crown prince exchanged some pleasantries with the city lord. Gu Qingfeng had already received his subordinate's report that the entire storeroom had been emptied in an instant. He revered the little girl even more, thinking that the little girl's inner world must be extraordinary, so Daybreak Sect's Li Xiang was the first to suffer when he wanted to spy on the little girl. TSK, I have to be more careful in the future and restrain my subordinates to not easily offend the little girl. Gu Qingfeng then mentioned the Thousand Flower Festival the day after tomorrow. It would be held from noon until night. Ever since the zombie disaster, the city hadn't held a large-scale entertainment event for the public for a long time, so City Lord Gu attached great importance to this event. After the Thousand Flower Festival's activities were arranged, the entire Shizhou city became lively. In addition, everyone heard that the top 3 winners of the Thousand Flower Festival would receive 50 caddies, and 20 caddies of grain, so everyone became excited. Every household moved their flowers to the plaza and registered to participate in this competition. Each of them rubbed their fists and rushed toward the grain. In the past, the first-place winner of the Thousand Flower Festival would be rewarded with 100 gold taels. Even so, those wealthy households were too lazy to participate. Normally, it was the small households that worked hard to participate in the competition and strive for 100 gold taels. But now, even the rich families in the city had all taken action. They took out the most expensive flowers in their homes and carried them to the square to register. It was clear that in this era, gold taels and silver taels were not even half as precious as grain. For the citywide event, the city lord also specially ordered that the poor people in the eastern and western districts could also come to the middle district to watch. However, these poor people had to go through a certain inspection before entering the middle district and were not allowed to bring any sharp weapons with them. As a result, everyone in Shizhou City, from 80-year-old ladies to 7- and 8-year-old children, talked about the Thousand Flower Festival enthusiastically. Their close friends formed groups of 3 to 5 and discussed how to travel together on that day. At dinner, Arbor finally showed up, making Qiao Zhongbang and his wife very happy. When the little white flower saw her, she immediately put down the chopsticks in her hand and stood up aggrievedly to give up her seat. With a submissive expression, she went to elderly Lady Qiao's side and stood next to her like a little daughter-in-law who couldn't be shown in public. Arbor didn't even bother to look at this white flower out of the corner of his eye. He greeted his parents and second uncle and sat down to eat. Under Xiaoyao's, "Young miss, try this one, try that one." She continued to serve the dishes and enjoyed a decent dinner. When Rowan furtively glanced at the child, a hint of anger flowing through her eyes. There was such a sumptuous spread of food on the table, and this family was eating happily, completely ignoring her. Other than her aunt, who felt sorry for her and took her hand to ask her to sit down and eat together, the others treated her as if she was invisible and ignored her. Even Wei Ziqin, who had been very nice to her in the beginning, had become much colder to her these 2 days. She basically didn't talk to her much, so she didn't even know where to start. It was simply depressing. She still remembered the first day she came to the Chow family. This family was very friendly to her, but everything changed drastically ever since that little bitch Arbor returned. Elderly Lady Chow had Sun Yang, who was serving beside her, add a stool for Wen Ruan, and Wen Ruan barely sat down. Arbor put down the small bowl in his hand and expressionlessly said, "I'm full. Father, mother, daughter will take her leave first. Everyone, ... Her meaning couldn't be more obvious. She clearly didn't want to see her. Chapter 222. Jojo. When Ruan hastily stood up and smiled awkwardly at Arbor. I heard the Thousand Flower Festival will be held in the city tomorrow." When Ruan stuttered when she met the child's dark eyes at first. However, after she calmed her breathing and put on a fake smile, she spoke more fluently. The children have been in Shizhou City for so long, but we haven't taken a proper look around yet. How about we go to the plaza in the city tomorrow as a family to take a look at this grand occasion? Who's a family with you? Arbor's face darkened. What a thick-skinned person. Do you think you'll have a chance to join our family in this lifetime? When Ruan shuddered, and her face alternated between green and white. She was put on the spot. Cough cough. There should be more people on the streets tomorrow. Shaolin is still young, so it's not appropriate for her to go out and be so crowded. Second uncle hastily smoothed things over with a smile. I think we should just forget about this. Unexpectedly, his little niece was curious and asked incoherently, "Mother, there are good things about the Thousand Flower Festival." Just like that, the tense atmosphere was disrupted by Shaolin's childish words. Arbor's tense face relaxed slightly, and she turned her head to look at her younger sister in amusement. Yes, there are many good things. Shaolin's eyes suddenly lit up. Sister, I want good things. Good things. Wei Ziqin was amused by the sisters' conversation. Second Uncle Qiao and Qiao Zhongbang's mouths could not help but twitch. This treasure had never been short of food for her during this period of time. The snacks and pastries were endless, and her life was even more nourishing and happy than before. Her little face was round and full, and she was thinking about this time all day long. Old Madame Fu coughed and tried to put in a good word for her niece. Then you youngsters should go and play together. Ziqin's belly is big, so she'll stay at home to take care of herself. Ruan, take the children out and be careful on the road. Yes, old madam. When Ruan's eyes flickered with excitement. She did not believe it. If he gave her a chance to spend more time with the children, she wouldn't be able to trick that damned girl Arbor to his side. Wasn't he just a little kid? How many thoughts could he have? When the time came, she would just have to use a little trick too. Arbor looked meaningfully at Wen Ruan before picking up Shaolin and turning to leave. He did not refute old Madame Wen's words. Old Madame Fu sighed in relief when she saw that Wen Ruan was cold but did not embarrass her on the spot. She even secretly gave Wen Ruan a look. When Ruan nodded at old Madame, her eyes saying, "Don't worry, old Madame. I'll definitely take this opportunity to get closer to these children." How could she have known that Arbor had pretended to agree to go out with her just to take her life? Because it's not appropriate to kill someone at home. The 10,000 Flower Festival was about to begin. Suddenly, Arbor stopped in his tracks. His cold eyes shot to the top of the wall. With a turn of his hand, he stuffed Shaolin into Xiao Hu's hands. "Brother Xiao Hu, bring little sister back. I'm going out for a bit." Xiao Hu was just excitedly talking about going to the 10,000 Flower Festival tomorrow when he raised his hand to catch Shaolin. In the blink of an eye, he saw his eldest sister jump over the wall as fast as lightning, and her small figure suddenly disappeared into the pitch-black night. His heart skipped a beat, and he hastily called out, Xiao Yao, hurry and tell Daddy. Don't worry, little young master. Miss has someone following her. She'll be fine. Xiao Yao hastily dissuaded the flustered youth. Xiao Yao will send you two back to your rooms first. Meanwhile, Arbor jumped over the wall and shot forward like a catapult, closely following a shadow elongated by the moonlight. Chapter 223. Master, Miss has already given chase, and Yi has also followed. Hui Feng stood solemnly in front of a carriage at the corner of the street and cupped his hands. The Crown Prince, who was resting with his eyes closed inside the carriage, slightly opened his phoenix eyes when he heard this. The carriage's exterior looked unremarkable, but the interior was actually filled with soft cushions, and every inch of the interior was wrapped in silk. The short table was delicately painted with green bamboo, and a large red brocade box was placed on top of it, right next to the Crown Prince's left. Hui Feng continued, that person was discovered as soon as he jumped onto Miss's wall, so he didn't have time to do anything. He was chased by Miss until he jumped over the wall and left in a sorry state like a stray dog. TSK, the Crown Prince chuckled disdainfully. Hui An's lackeys were truly unreliable. Let's go and take a look. Let's just treat them as appetizers for tomorrow's Thousand Blossom Festival celebration. If Jojo wins, I'll give this to her as a reward. The Crown Prince's fingers lightly stroked the large red brocade box next to him. This item had always been under He Tian's care, but since the Crown Prince was here in person, it was more appropriate for his master to personally give it to the little girl. He Tian was quite tactful. Hidden Flower followed beside the carriage the entire way and straightened out the creases on his sleeves. He couldn't help but chuckle. Then what if she loses? Hui Feng glanced at him. Does this fool know that trouble comes from careless talk? If she loses, I'll sell you. An exquisite kettle was thrown out of the carriage and smashed directly at Hidden Flower's head. Hidden Flower dodged to the side with a sullen face. So infuriating. Master is so unreasonable and randomly insults people. I beg for an explanation. At this time, the man being chased by Arbor like a stray dog was already inexplicably sweating on his forehead. He simply didn't dare to believe that a level 4 mystic cultivator like him would be discovered the moment he stepped onto the other party's wall. This child was too strange. That speed of pursuit simply made him feel inexplicably apprehensive. Could it be that the person he encountered now was a tough nut to crack? The man swiftly ran toward the rendezvous point. Damn little brat, since you want to follow me, then keep following me. Let's see how you'll die without a burial place then. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind hit his back. The man turned his head around in shock and saw that a small stoic face had already appeared behind him. She was holding a ferrule as black as ink, and she swung it at his back without any explanation. Before the ferrule arrived, a strong gust of wind had already arrived. Profound energy suddenly exploded on his back, causing him to stagger 2 or 3 steps forward in a sorry state. Before he could even open his mouth to make a sound, a terrifying little foot carrying profound energy suddenly kicked him in the back. Pooh! The man's old face stiffened. As he rushed forward, he spat out a mouthful of old blood. He felt as if his internal organs had been turned around in his body. Every part of his body was in pain. What a scary girl. I have to run. Sensing the approaching aura of death, the man didn't dare to stay any longer. He ran forward with all his might. Just now, he had already mobilized all the profound energy in his body to block that wretched girl's attack. But he was still injured. What did this mean? The man's eyes widened. This wretched girl's cultivation was higher than his. Why was this so? How old was she? Bang! Arbor swung her ferrule again in pursuit, but it missed. A beam of light formed by profound energy fiercely smashed several inches behind the man's heel, scaring him so much that his old face turned pale. He suddenly staggered and actually ran away at an extraordinary speed. The child wrinkled her brows and sniffed. She followed that man out of the city and ran toward the ruined western part of the city. Chapter 224. Damn girl. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. Let's see how fierce you'll be in a while. The man forced a smile and suddenly stopped and turned around. Arbor also stopped and turned her head to look at the two brawny men that appeared from the shadows. Damn girl, it's not too late to beg for mercy now. From his appearance, the person who spoke looked like an ordinary farmer. His face was dark, and he looked honest and considerate. Xiao Mu coldly swept her gaze over the three people's faces in succession. Who sent you here? The dark-skinned man sneered. Go ask at King of Hell's Hall. Two immobilization talismans suddenly floated into the air and suddenly split open when they hit two of the men. Before those two idiots could figure out what was going on, they were immediately immobilized on the spot, dumbstruck. Before they could react, Arbor turned around and charged at the dark-skinned man. You're courting death, the man roared, a trace of surprise flashing through his heart. This child actually had an immobilization talisman on her. According to their open and covert investigations over the past few days, they were very clear that this child was only a child from an ordinary family, but for some reason, His Highness favored her. Thinking of the mission the commandery princess assigned, the dark-skinned man, Nian Kuei, gritted his teeth and untied his weapon from his back. It was an iron-spiked club with provocative spikes that sparkled under the moonlight. Damn girl, don't think that you're amazing just because you're a mystic cultivator. Your body isn't even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth, Nian Kuei shouted and swung his spiked club at Arbor's head. When did I say that mystic cultivators are amazing? Arbor sneered. Her tiny body suddenly rose into the air, and with a light tap of her toes, she flipped over the man's head in an instant. She nimbly flipped her small body in the air and suddenly stomped her two short legs on Nian Kuei's back with a heavy backstrike. With the crisp sound of bones, Nian Kuei immediately howled and staggered forward, falling to the ground and kneeling like a toad. He lay on the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, it's more than enough to deal with you alone. The little girl waved her hand, and the ferrule emitted an ink-colored brilliance, directly smashing the mace in the brawny man's hand into pieces. Nian Kuei was shocked as he held a small part of the end of the club. With an aghast expression, he loosened his grip. That half-dead stick fell to the ground with a thud, as if it had smashed into his heart. Arbor sensed something and looked back. He saw the crown prince, who was dressed in a black robe, getting off the carriage. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked magnificent. The little fellow's eyes lit up as he hurriedly ran towards him. The corners of Hidden Flower's lips curled up as he thought to himself, as expected of my lord. From the age of 80 to the age of 8, he can charm everyone in the world. Hurry up. Help me extract a strand of his life soul. The little fellow rushed to the crown prince's side and hurriedly grabbed his hand. Hidden Flower thought to himself, this savage bastard. Her eyes didn't light up just now because she was happy to see the crown prince, right? The crown prince naturally interpreted her action of rushing over to grab his hand as a request for a hug and caress. He reached out and picked her up. He rubbed her small head and said with a slightly displeased expression, what use can such a good-for-nothing be? If you want to use someone, just leave Hidden Flower behind. Master. Hidden Flower called out exaggeratedly and desperately squeezed out 2 drops of manly tears. Arbor turned to glance at Hidden Flower before turning back to the crown prince and saying, he's already crying, so you should keep him for yourself. Don't be so heartless. It's not easy being a subordinate. Hidden Flower and Hui Feng both twitched their mouths. Aoyi, who was hiding in the dark, thought, then why did you freaking charge him back then? Chapter 225. When Nian Kuei saw the crown prince, he had already collapsed to the ground, trembling. The other two were even worse. After the immobilization talisman's effect was lifted, they fell to their knees one after the other and prostrated themselves on the ground, not daring to raise their heads even an inch. Your Highness, Your Highness. Ah! Nien Kuei screamed and rolled back and forth on the ground while holding his head. Arbor reached out to take the soul that the Crown Prince handed over, a strange smile faintly appearing on his lips. Search him. Xiao Mu expressionlessly gave the order. Without waiting for Stay Up Late to rush out, Hidden Flower and Hui Feng scrambled to Nien Kuei's side. They roughly kicked him twice and flipped him over to search him. Soon, a small box was handed over to the little girl. The Crown Prince's phoenix eyes darkened as he stared at the box in the child's hand. You know their master? Xiao Mu turned to look at him. These people were obviously working for someone. Since they knew the Crown Prince, they most likely came from Guanlan City. Hui En of the vassal king of an Nan's estate. Her ancestors fought alongside the late king and inherited the title of king. The Crown Prince's phoenix eyes darkened, dark clouds covering them. What a great Hui En! He really didn't know that she had brought over a medicinal pill to secretly poison his little Jojo. Arbor opened the box and saw a brown pill with an abnormally sweet taste lying inside. He was about to pick it up when the Crown Prince grabbed his hand and stopped him. It's only a Yin poison pill. It can't harm me. Arbor sneered and picked up the pill with his fingers. He sniffed it and snorted in disdain. What a crappy concoction method. After taking it, the Yin poison will enter the body. As you grow older, the cold poison will increase day by day, and your body will deteriorate. In the future, her monthly period would be so painful that she wished she was dead until her body was imperceptibly corroded by the cold poison, making it difficult for her to conceive. The Crown Prince snatched the pill from the child's hand and flicked his finger. Hidden Flower very tacitly slapped Nien Kuei, causing him to open his mouth in pain and catch the Yin poison pill. Hui Feng punched him again, causing Nien Kuei to swallow the pill with a gulp before he could react. Arbor couldn't help but want to laugh. This Yin poison pill was not of much use to men. Kill those two and leave him alive so he can report back. The corners of Arbor's lips curled up slightly as he looked meaningfully at Nien Kuei. For some reason, Nien Kuei's body involuntarily trembled as his pupils abruptly shrank due to fear. Why aren't you scramming? Hidden Flower killed the two little bugs without hesitation and kicked Nien Kuei in the back. Nien Kuei was shocked, and fled in a flurry with injuries all over his body. Seeing the man run away, the Crown Prince lifted the child up and looked at him. What's your plan? The child muttered a few words to him. Although he spoke softly, Hidden Flower and the others still heard every word clearly. Then, they all secretly glanced at the child as if they were looking at a little monster. Will there be trouble? No. The Crown Prince laughed heartily. Hidden Flower. Hidden Flower and the others endured the shock of their jaws dropping to the ground. When they heard the Crown Prince's summons, they hurriedly ran forward and took out a white jade tablet, offering it to the young lady with both hands. What an exquisitely carved communication jade tablet. Arbor took it and flipped it to the back. There was a dark red hidden engraved on the back and a black knight engraved on the back. This is the common communication jade tablet of the Hidden Pavilion and Night Pavilion. Just write down whatever you want to know, the Crown Prince said with a smile. Arbor nodded and silently put it away. When Hidden Flower handed over a special jade pen, Arbor waved her hand. She had the gold-beaded talisman pen, so she naturally didn't need anything else. Hidden Flower glanced at the Crown Prince in confusion. Seeing the Crown Prince nod at him, he put away the jade pen. Chapter 226. Jojo, you've won, so there's a reward. Arbor reached out and hugged the brocade box the Crown Prince stuffed into his hands. When he opened it, his gaze was attracted by an ink-colored ring. Without too many garish decorations, this ring quietly laid there. Its lines were very distinct and exuded a unique charm. The child reached out to pick it up and put it on. The ring immediately contracted and very obediently encircled her small hand. You're a mystic weapon master, Arbor said hesitantly. He had wanted to ask last time. Previously, when he was dealing with the zombies, He concentrated all his mystic energy and actually drew out the fire spirit hidden inside the feral. And that fire spirit was extremely similar to the fire spirit the Crown Prince released with a flip of his hand no matter how he looked at it. Arbor guessed that this guy probably fused a trace of the fire spirit into the feral when he forged it. Mo Lien nodded with a smile. Smart. How about it, won't you try it? Arbor channeled a wisp of mystic energy into the ring. A wisp of light instantly erupted from the ring. Xiao Mu's face was stoic as she looked up at the transparent cover that enveloped her entire body from the top of her head. Her small mouth involuntarily twitched. This guy. He actually made a cover that looked like an eggshell. Now that it covered her entire body, it was just like an egg yolk was wrapped in the eggshell. Mo Lien laughed very unkindly and turned around while hugging the child through the eggshell. He just knew that this defensive cover on the child would definitely be extremely adorable. This defensive cover can currently withstand a powerful attack from a level 12 Mystic Cultivator. However, as your cultivation increases, it will also unseal and continue to increase its defensive power. The little stoic silently removed the eggshell and looked down at the brocade box. This brocade box had a compartment. After removing the top layer, an ink-colored, glowing metallic doll was revealed. Do I look like I'm still at the age of playing with dolls? The little stoic silently roared in her heart, and her pair of dark eyes irritably glared at the Crown Prince. Here, put it on and try. The Crown Prince flipped his palm, revealing a small piece of fluorescent green stone. This is a spirit stone. Put it in its stomach. The little stoic did as he said, but her face was expressionless. Until. Greetings, little master. The doll in the box suddenly jumped up and danced as if it had been injected with chicken blood. The child's eyes suddenly widened. He pointed at the little doll that suddenly moved and asked, "What is this? Isn't it fun?" The Crown Prince chuckled and poked the child's face. This is a mechanical puppet. They could talk to you to relieve your boredom, send you letters, run errands, and inquire about information. The most important thing is that it can. The Crown Prince whispered into the little fellow's ear, kill people. Murder? Such a tiny little thing. Xiao Mu's eyes revealed a look that said, I can stomp it flat with one foot. The Crown Prince couldn't help but laugh. Try it? Come. The moment the child jumped down, the golem jumped down as well. It instantly grew to the size of an adult and punched the child's face. Oh my god, it could even grow bigger. This was simply too unconventional. Furthermore, from the looks of it, his strength was comparable to that of a 10th-rank body cultivator. No more fighting, no more fighting. This was simply bullying. The child ran a circle around the field, making Hidden Flower and the others secretly laugh. Hurry and make it stop. The Crown Prince laughed in spite of himself. It listens to you. Prince Mo slowly followed the child's short running legs and walked a circle. The child was startled and turned to look at the golem that was chasing after him with large strides. Stop! Chapter 227. After the Crown Prince carried her into the carriage, the child was a bit drowsy as she lay on his body on the way back. After all, she was still young and was at the age when she liked to sleep. When they arrived at Pear Blossom Alley, the Crown Prince didn't wake her up and directly carried her back to her room. He only greeted Wei Ziqin and Xiao Zhongbang before he left. The couple looked at each other and felt at the same time that they seemed to have gained a son-in-law who could come and go as he pleased. Thus, when the little fellow woke up early the next day, her eyes blinked as she looked at the bedside canopy, unable to react for a moment. Good morning, little master. Little master, you're so beautiful today. Little master, if you smile, you'll definitely be even more beautiful. Oh my god. Little Arbor tilted his head to the side and glanced at a certain fellow who was bouncing freely next to the pillow. The corners of his mouth involuntarily twitched. Little Xiao Mu reached out to take the little golem and expressionlessly opened its stomach. A certain fellow whimpered, Little master, you're going to take away my spirit stones. Little master, I'll miss you, oh. Shut up. Arbor removed the noisy golem's spirit stones, picked up the bag of spirit stones next to the golem, and tossed it into the bag as well. Yesterday, when she was in a daze, she still heard the crown prince mutter to her, "This golem consumes quite a lot of spirit stones. It's fine if you send a message or ask for information. But if you transform into battle mode, you'll use up one spirit stone every 2 hours." And it was said that things like spirit stones could not be excavated on Seacone planet. The crown prince actually had something that could not be excavated on Seacone planet. Little Xiao Mu thought about it and tossed it aside. She had many secrets anyway. The crown prince did not ask about the little tree's matter, so she naturally would not ask him about it. After putting on her clothes and putting away the golem and bag of spirit stones, Arbor opened the door and walked out. After taking a breath of fresh air, Arbor walked 2 steps along the corridor and suddenly stopped. She looked coldly at the 2 people whose backs were facing her in the small courtyard. Qiao Zhongbang truly did not expect to be stopped by Wen Ruan so early in the morning. Although the 2 of them kept a certain distance from each other, they still felt a little strange when they saw Miss Wen walking closer step by step in a mysterious manner. "Miss Wen, if you have something to say, just say it." Qiao Zhongbang frowned and took 2 steps back. Wen Ruan smiled gently at Qiao Zhongbang and took out a white jade porcelain bottle from her sleeve. She handed it to him and said with a smile, "Big brother Qiao, there's a meridian healing pill inside. It'll definitely help your damaged mystic meridians greatly if you take it. Who knows, there might even be hope for the recovery of his profound veins." Qiao Zhongbang's eyelids suddenly twitched, and his slightly heated gaze landed on the porcelain bottle in Wen Ruan's hand. "This. Miss Wen, I can't accept a reward without any effort. How can I accept such a valuable gift from you? Big brother Qiao, don't decline. I've always been grateful that you guys took me in, and I've always wanted to repay Big brother Qiao." Wen Ruan smiled gently and said softly, "Big brother Qiao, are you suspecting the origin of my pill? Don't worry. This pill was given to me by a Taoist priest who had the demeanor of a transcendent being. I helped him out a little and he gave it to me. It's definitely not fake, so don't worry, Big brother Qiao." "No, it's not." Qiao Zhongbang awkwardly took a step back and repeatedly waved his hand. That won't do. Miss Wen, I can't accept this pill, I absolutely can't accept it. You better take it back." "Father," Arbor called out normally and interrupted Wen Ruan's words. Chapter 228. Qiao Zhongbang immediately let out a sigh of relief when he saw his daughter and strode over. "Jojo, you're up. Let's go. Your mother and the others should be waiting in the dining room. Let's go." Could it be that in her previous life, when Ruan also took out this immortal pill and failed to kidnap father, which made grandmother more determined to let her marry into the family? Was it also because father could recover his mystic meridians and become a mystic cultivator that when Ruan was willing to marry him? Otherwise, how could this scheming woman be willing to marry someone else? Later on, she was captured by her friend and had her limbs broken. She was locked up day and night to study her inner world, so she really did not pay attention to whether her father recovered and became a mystic cultivator in the end. However, these matters from her previous life did not matter. Because when Ruan, this possible variable, would be erased. Arbor gave Wen Ruan a thought-provoking gaze. "Jump around properly. There's not much time left, you." She then turned around and followed her father to the dining room. Wen Ruan inexplicably shuddered and angrily put away the white jade bottle in her hand. She inwardly cursed Qiao Zhongbang for not knowing how to appreciate favors, and angrily followed her father to the dining room. She had not eaten breakfast yet, so she naturally could not bring the children out on an empty stomach. When Wen Ruan reached the dining room, she could not help but stifle her anger. Qiao Zhongbang and Qiao Zhongxing's family were happily eating breakfast and completely treated her as invisible. They did not even bother to greet her. Old Madam happened to say that she was not feeling well again, so breakfast was sent to her room. When Ruan was alone, so she took a bowl and chopsticks and casually ate. The more she ate, the more she found the food tasteless. Today's breakfast was just a pot of plain porridge and steamed buns. She ate until her mouth was almost bland. When Rowan knew Wei Ziqin had a secret because she often saw her fiddling around in the kitchen with the door closed. Soon, she would be able to conjure a lot of delicious meat and poultry. But today's breakfast was too plain. Usually, when she saw Xiao Lin, that girl, eating pastries that she had never seen before, she completely didn't know how to share them. She really didn't know how Wei Ziqin raised her daughter. The children she raised were each more selfish and heartless than the other. When Rowan secretly smacked her lips and gently put down the bowl and chopsticks in her hand. No matter how resentful she was, she still wore a very amiable smile on her face. She looked in the direction of Arbor and softly said with a fawning expression, "Jojo, should we go out earlier? We can still stroll around on the way." Xiao Lin held a bun in both hands and took a few bites. Her eyes suddenly lit up as she looked at her elder sister. "What's the flour this time?" "Pfft." Qiao Zhongxing laughed unkindly. Arbor also didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He extended his hand toward Xiao Lin and Xiao Lin immediately tilted her small body and pounced toward him. "Mother, father, second uncle, we'll go out first." Arbor stood up with his little sister in his arms. His small body hugging a little bun didn't seem out of place at all. Instead, it was a little creepy. "Jojo, be careful on the road." Mother rubbed her stomach and looked at the sisters with a smile. "Xiao Hu, pay attention to your two sisters," second uncle instructed with a smile. "Yes, father," Xiao Hu answered hurriedly. Xiao Hu answered excitedly. His heart almost flew out of his chest at the thought of being able to go out and play soon. "Don't worry, master and madam. Xiao Yao will take good care of the young master and young miss." Xiao Yao walked over with a chuckle and stood next to Arbor. Little White Flower also smiled hypocritically at Wei Ziqin. "Sister Ziqin, don't worry." Chapter 229. I'm here to look after the children. Absolutely nothing will happen to them. If something happens, Rowan will risk her life to protect the children. When Rowan chuckled to herself and did not notice the other people's expressions. Wei Ziqin and Xiao Zhongbang looked at each other, feeling that something was amiss with her words. Why would she say such ominous words for no reason? Of course nothing will happen to the children. What kind of frightening situation would they encounter if they needed you to protect them with your life? Wei Ziqin frowned, feeling slightly uncomfortable. She nodded indifferently at Little White Flower before looking at her daughters with a smile and watching them leave. Qiao Zhongxing turned to his eldest brother. "Eldest brother, I don't know what's wrong with mother. She even refused to eat breakfast today, saying that she's not feeling well. How about we go check on her?" Qiao Zhongbang nodded and said to his wife, "Ziqin, go back and rest. Second brother and I will go check on mother." Then, the two brothers walked toward Old Madam's room together. Old Madam was still in high spirits last night, so why was she feeling unwell this early in the morning? Their daughters did not refute Old Madam yesterday, so what was there for her to feel unwell about? "Mother! Mother!" The two brothers knocked on the door outside the room. "Mother, can we come in?" Old Madam answered after a while, "Zhongbang Zhongxing, mother is fine. My head just hurts a bit, so I want to sleep a bit more. Don't disturb mother." The two brothers looked at each other in astonishment. "Mother, why did you suddenly have a headache? How about we have Chang Zai go to the medical center in the city and invite a doctor back for mother?" Old Madam Qiao hastily said in a slight panic, "And no need. No need to trouble yourself. Mother will be fine after sleeping a bit more. All right, you two brothers can go. Mother is fine." Why was mother acting so strange? Qiao Zhongbang and his brother muttered softly before leaving in embarrassment. On the other side, Little White Flower led the four children out and sneaked a glance at Jojo. "Jojo, we came out quite early. Where do you want to go? The four children remained silent. Arbor remained silent and expressionless. Jolin, who was in her arms, was munching on half a bun and ignoring everyone else. Xiao Yao lowered her head and followed her mistress. Since her mistress didn't say anything, she naturally wouldn't say anything. Xiao Hu looked around and didn't hear what the little white flower was saying. The four children were so uncooperative that little white flower gritted her teeth in anger. Once again, she secretly cursed the Qiao family for not knowing how to raise children. The group of four walked out of Pear Blossom Alley and headed towards the main street. The lively atmosphere that greeted them made Xiao Hu's eyes turn back and forth. He didn't even have the time to watch the fun, let alone listen to little white flower's nagging. Sister, this time. Little Lin pointed at a stall with her chubby little finger and yelled. Arbor looked back and saw a stall selling silk flowers. He couldn't help but be amused by this little girl. You're not allowed to eat. Eat half of the bun in your hand. You're not allowed to eat before dinner. Look at how round your stomach is after eating so much. In this day and age, the rice and grains sold on the streets were more expensive than gold. How could they set up a stall selling fine snacks if they couldn't even afford to eat coarse grains? Little Lin pouted and silently continued to munch on her bun. When Rowan scooted over to the sisters and reached out to Qiao Mu ingratiatingly. Qiao Qiao, Xiao Lin is quite heavy, right? You must be tired from carrying her. How about I carry her for a while? No need. Arbor dodged and walked forward with little Lin in his arms. Chapter 230. When Rowan suppressed a trace of anger in her eyes as she roared inwardly, "You're just like your dad. You don't know how to appreciate favors." If it weren't for the fact that the Qiao family was well off and didn't have to worry about food and clothing, she wouldn't have bothered fawning over them like a little wife. She just didn't want to go back to that lousy place in the Western District to suffer. Arbor walked in front with Xiao Lin in his arms, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. As the sun gradually rose, the flow of people on the main street increased. Many people walked toward the Thousand Flowers Plaza in groups. I think Landlord Li's flower will win first place in the competition. That's right. Even those rich and powerful families are rushing to participate in this Thousand Flowers festival. Poor commoners like us won't be able to make a living. I think we can forget about that 50 kilograms of rice. Everyone discussed in low voices, and quite a few people sighed. Don't worry. I heard there's also an incentive prize for 200 participants. Each person can get a kilogram of beans. But we'll have to rely on the number plate in our hands to draw a prize. We have to hurry and get a matching number plate. Oh, that's great. Right. Let's hurry and get a plate. But why did the city lord let those filthy fellows from the eastern and western districts in and fight with us for the number plates? Arbor walked toward the entrance of the plaza where the number plates were distributed. Since they came out to play, they naturally had to put on a show. The number plates were a pair of thin, specially made bamboo slips with numbers carved on the back with a knife. The line was very long, but the number plates were distributed quickly, so it wasn't long before it was their turn. Arbor's children each took a pair. When they flipped it open, they saw that their number was already over 5,000. Little sister, do you think I'll get a kilogram of beans? As Qiao Hu spoke, the adults next to him couldn't help but snicker. Little brother, it all depends on luck. Say, there are at least 10,000 people participating in this event in the entire city. It sounds like 200 participants are quite a lot, but compared to the total number of participants, the winning ratio really isn't high. Qiao Hu nodded. You're right, uncle. It all depends on luck. It'd be great if I could get a kilogram of beans. Hey kid, who doesn't want a caddy of beans? I still want to take that caddy of beans. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to get it. My face is white. Qiao Hu raised his head and snorted. Arbor was speechless. Bro, you don't need a pound of beans. You look so expectant, and you're even arguing with a stranger. She felt that she might be very poor. Seriously, it felt so annoying to bring a bunch of clowns out on the streets. All kinds of flowers and plants were placed along the street, circling around the main street to the plaza. It was extremely crowded and bustling. As the sun approached noon, the people who were watching the flowers began to cast their cards. They cast one card and kept the other. It was said that there would be people in the city lord's mansion working overnight to count the number of the winners. The winners would only be announced the next day. At that time, as long as they were the winners, they would be able to line up at the city lord's mansion to receive food with a number plate. Arbor held little Lin in his arms as they walked. From time to time, he would take down his sister's outstretched hand that was asking for a flower. Suddenly, Xiao Mu's footsteps paused in front of a flower pot that resembled a begonia, and she blinked. The old man who was arranging the flower pot was so happy that he almost jumped out. "Kid, cast your card. Do you like it? Quickly cast your card for this old man." It was a pity that it had been on display for an entire afternoon, but only a few people had cast their cards. The old man was about to cry. How could he win a prize like this? The whole family was waiting for the rice to boil at home. "Old grandpa, are you selling this flower pot?" Arbor's little face was expressionless, but his dark eyes were brighter than ever. Chapter 231. The old man was startled. He examined the children in front of him and saw that they were dressed in bright and beautiful clothes. They should be the children of some wealthy family in the city. He hesitantly asked, "Sell? What's the price?" If the child wanted to give him any gold or silver, he naturally would not sell it. 50 caddies of rice in exchange for your pot of flowers. Are you selling? Arbor asked softly. 50 caddies of rice? The old man's loud voice immediately attracted the attention of a group of people. Originally, not many people paid attention to them, but now that the 50 caddies of rice was mentioned, they immediately surrounded them. Arbor did not like crowds, so he frowned and said, "Grandpa, are you selling or not? 50 caddies of rice in exchange." Of course, of course. His family had a large population, and the monthly allowance from the city lord's estate was not enough to feed them. Even if they lived frugally and ate porridge every day, the food would only last them for 20 days. They would have to think of other ways to feed themselves. The food at home was about to run out, and now the child asked for 50 caddies of rice in exchange. How could the old man refuse? "Then come with me," Arbor said to the old man indifferently. He turned around and led the old man to a tea house on the side of the street. This tea house was actually empty. They could not even fill their stomachs these days. Who would have the leisure and mood to come here like an idiot to drink tea and talk about swords? Arbor randomly picked a private room and walked in. He said softly, "Stop them outside." Yes, Mississippi Aoye immediately appeared and blocked the crowd who wanted to rush in with a murderous expression. "Miss has ordered that no one is allowed inside. I'm not an outsider. Let me in. I'm a relative of your Mississippi. When Rowan wanted to squeeze in but was blocked and pushed by Aoye's extended arm. When Rowan staggered back several steps and was immediately pushed to the back by the crowd. She was so angry that her face turned pale and her lips trembled. Aoye stood at the half-open door of the tea house and said coldly, "No one is allowed inside. Otherwise, you will be killed without mercy." Everyone immediately took a few big steps back. They all looked at the black-clothed youth with disbelief in their eyes. Wasn't he just curious and wanted to see if the little girl could take out so much food? He didn't need to kill anyone. A middle-aged woman curled her lips in disdain and said, "I think this child is either crazy or lying. In this kind of day, who would use precious 50 caddies of rice to exchange for a pot of useless flowers that can only be admired? My little sister loves to eat flowers." Xiao Hu stood at the entrance of the tea house and angrily shouted at the woman. What do these people know? Eldest younger sister was so powerful. She must have her own reasons for doing this. A group of onlookers liked to spew nonsense when they had nothing to do. Yes, the second flower. Xiao Lin was pulled to Xiao Hu's side and nodded her little head in agreement. Everyone was speechless. Not long after, the old man happily walked out with a big bag of rice. The weight of the 50 kilograms of rice made him bend over, but his face was glowing, and he felt strong all over. Arbor slowly walked out and temporarily put the pot of begonia-like flowers into the storage talisman. When everyone saw the old man come out with a bag of rice on his back, their eyes immediately widened. God, the old man really exchanged that pot of flowers for 50 caddies of rice. Is it true? Little girl, your little sister likes to eat flowers. I have flowers too. I'll sell them to you. It's not expensive. I only want 40 caddies of rice. Get lost. Child, buy mine. Buy mine. I'll give you 30 caddies. 30 caddies of rice in exchange. Chapter 232. What's up with these people? Arbor stood at the entrance of the tea house in a daze and frowned as he watched a group of people holding flower pots and squeezing toward her. Too noisy. He pulled out his 3-foot-long sword with a whoosh, scaring the crowd that was fighting to sell flowers and causing them to hastily retreat like the tide. It's so hard to run a small business. Why do people have to point their swords at me? When Rowan was the one who was about to explode from anger. She was pushed and shoved further and further away from the tea house by the barbaric crowd. She had just called out "Chow Chow" when she suddenly felt a weight on her shoulder. Someone held her down. How dare you? When Rowan angrily rebuked and turned to look at that lecher. In her enlarged eyes, a wrinkled face with completely dead skin suddenly appeared. That thing suddenly grinned and gave her a smile. With a plop, a piece of rotten meat fell from his chin. When Rowan's hair stood on end. Ah! She let out an earth-shattering scream and turned to run toward the crowd while trembling all over. Corpse puppet. The corpse puppet is here. Save me. Save me. The crowd that was squeezing in front immediately dispersed to the sides in tacit understanding. Who cared if she lived or died? They all turned around and ran away with pale faces, dragging their families with them. They stopped selling flowers and could no longer watch the show. Everyone ran back home in fear of their own safety. However, they soon realized that something was amiss. This corpse puppet seemed to be chasing after that unlucky girl. It didn't even look at them. Coincidentally, a fat woman was running in a panic and didn't look where she was going. She crashed into someone's stall and couldn't get up. The corpse puppet passed by her like the wind and didn't even look at her out of the corner of its eye. The fat woman originally thought she was going to die. Her face was pale with fright, and her mouth was trembling so much that she couldn't even speak. When she saw the corpse puppet running away, she opened her mouth wide in shock, her eyes filled with disbelief. Everyone hid on both sides of the street. The braver ones stopped and almost laughed out loud when they saw what was happening. This corpse puppet was really amusing. It didn't catch anyone and just chased after that girl. As it ran, it hissed and roared, scaring the girl so much that she rolled and crawled all over the street. She kept running forward like a headless fly. It's Aunt Wen. Xiao Hu was stunned as he stood at the entrance of the tea house. Xiao Yao, you keep an eye on the two of them. I'll go and see what happened to Aunt Wen. Arbor's eyes flashed when he read the two words, Aunt Wen. Xiao Yao held back her laughter and nodded. She reached out and took Xiao Lin's little hand. Why is that girl running towards Autumn Moon Garden? That place is just a 7-story opera house. It's so empty that there's nowhere to hide. Quickly report to the city lord that a corpse puppet has broken into the city. Save me, save me. Save me. When Rowan begged the passers-by for help with a face full of terror. However, every time she touched a passerby, They would fling her hand away in a panic and continuously retreat, opening up a very wide path for her and the corpse puppet. Roar, roar, roar. The corpse puppet that couldn't catch up to her for a long time roared furiously and suddenly increased its speed to chase after her. When Rowan resisted the urge to faint and stumbled into the garden. She stumbled and crawled into the pavilion and ran up the stairs while holding onto the handrail. After running up 3 floors and not even the 4th, she was completely exhausted. She leaned against the handrail and panted heavily. Suddenly, a small and smooth hand grabbed her wrist, startling her into reflexively flinging her hand away and screaming. Chapter 233. Antoine, it's me. Arber's unique soft voice rang in her ears, rousing Rowan's spirits. Jojo, Jojo, save me. Hurry and save me. When Rowan grabbed Arber's wrist tightly like a drowning person grabbing onto a piece of driftwood. She said tearfully, "Why, you're a mystic cultivator. You can definitely save my Jojo. Am I right?" Roar, roar, roar. The roar of a zombie came from below the building at the right time. The background music was really quite good. Arber's lips twitched. She grabbed Rowan and said anxiously, "Antoine, let's run. I can't beat this monster. It's so strong." Rowan's heart sank bit by bit. She had overestimated Xiao Mu, this damn lass. But then again, she was only a 7-year-old child. Even if she was a mystic cultivator, how high could her cultivation be? Facing a strong zombie, the child would definitely not be able to deal with it. If the zombie caught up to her later, then a vicious and sinister glint flashed through Rowan's eyes. She could not die no matter what. For the sake of his own life, he could only push Xiao Mu, this damn lass, out as a shield when the time came. Who told her to come here and court death? It was all because of her. She found her at the brink of death. When Rowan relied on her survival instincts and climbed to the top floor of the theater building breathlessly. She was as tired as a dead dog as she lay on the railing, panting heavily. There was a tall trellis on the top floor of the theater building, and it was surrounded by a carved fence. Usually, the audience would sit in the elegant pavilion across the street to drink tea and listen to music. They would only sit in the open air when the weather was good. Rowan panted heavily as she clung to the railing. Looking down from above, she felt dizzy and could not stand steadily. She hastily turned around and leaned against the railing. She gripped the railing so tightly that her fingers turned slightly white. Is it catching up to us? Huff, 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 huff. Rowan was sweating profusely and panting non-stop. Due to the intense running, her heart felt like it was going to jump out of her chest. It was extremely uncomfortable. I don't think so. The child looked at her calmly, his voice very calm. Not to mention panting loudly, the child's unchanging stoic face didn't even have the slightest change in emotion. It was expressionless as usual. Rowan seemed to have realized something, and her pupils abruptly contracted. She gripped the railing tightly with both hands and stared at the child vigilantly. Why you? Wasn't this child a little too calm? Rowan felt a slight tremble from her soul to her body as she stared into the depths of those emotionless eyes. A terrifying emotion rapidly spread through her heart. Cough, cough, cough. Rowan choked on a mouthful of air and coughed loudly. Jojo, why you? Huff, 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 why do you have a way to deal with that zombie below? Don't lie to Antoine. I don't have a way. The child slowly walked toward her. Tap, tap, tap. Every small step seemed to land on Rowan's heart, causing her heart to palpitate and her eyelids to twitch non-stop. At this moment, a roar came from the top floor. Rowan's nerves were stretched taut. She sternly yelled at Jojo, Jojo, come to me quickly. It's coming, it's coming. Damn it, this child seemed too calm. She had to have him firmly in her hands. She heard that zombies wouldn't pay attention to other people when they were focused on eating a person's corpse. Chapter 234. Antoine, you're not trying to push me to death so you can run away yourself, right? Xiao Mu suddenly stopped in her tracks. She tilted her head and looked at the woman who was as gentle as water with a strange expression. When Rowan's heart skipped a beat. She tried her best to maintain her composure, but she stuttered, how is that possible? Why would Antoine do that? Ha! The child's voice was faint. His soft voice rose slightly at the end with an inexplicable meaning. When Rowan gulped and waved at the child with a mocking smile. Jojo, come here. Come to Aunt Wen's side. Do you still remember that before Aunt Wen left, I promised your parents that no matter what happened, I would guarantee the safety of you and your siblings? Oh, right. Why yes. When Rowan feigned embarrassment with a smile and urged Xiao Mu, then come over, Xiao Xiao. Don't worry, even if Aunt Wen has to risk her life, I will definitely protect you, Xiao Xiao. Aunt Wen, you're such a good person. Arbor nodded and pattered to her side, looking as though he was a good person. When Rowan suddenly grabbed Arbor's wrist and held it tightly in her palm. Arbor could not help but be slightly surprised by the strength of her grip. It turned out that a normal person could also explode with a powerful force when their life was in danger. Bang! A rotting figure suddenly stepped onto the stage in the middle and howled at Rowan. When Rowan's face instantly turned pale from fright. She tightly grabbed Arbor's wrist and subconsciously pulled him in front of her to shield her. Jojo, don't be scared. I'll feed you to the zombie later. It'll only hurt a bit when it bites you, but you'll soon lose all feeling. For my life, I can only sacrifice you, you damn girl. Every man for himself. Don't blame me for being vicious. When Rowan's eyes widened, she abruptly discovered that her body was forcefully pushed by someone, causing her to fall backward against the railing. What? What? What happened? She was caught off guard and never thought that the child in her arms would have such evil intentions towards her. He actually knew. Strike first and gain the upper hand. He was the first to reach out his demonic claws and ruthlessly push her chest. Her body uncontrollably fell flat on the ground. No, her entire body flipped backward and fell out of the railing. No. No. That's impossible. What's outside the railing? The 7-story theater was several zhang high. If an ordinary person were to fall from it, they would definitely die. The last thing Rowan saw was the little girl's pair of pitch-black pupils that were as cold as knives. Miss Wen's horrified expression was written all over her face. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her eyes were filled with 3 words, why? She had struggled so hard in this world, bitterly seeking survival. She had worked so hard, yet she still could not ask for the mercy of the heavens. Why did he want to kill her? Why did the child want her dead? She was just an ordinary person. What did her being alive do to the child? As she screamed and fell, she clearly saw a faint smile in the child's eyes. Smile? The child was smiling. She was laughing at her stupidity. She was laughing at her scheming, but in the end, she still died. She hated it. She really hated it. Ah! When Rowan fell straight down from the 7-story theater. Without any suspense, she was restrained by the Earth's core and landed on the ground with a bang. Her limbs were stiff and spread out. When Rowan stared at the sky with her eyes wide open. However, she could no longer see anything in that instant. A smear of dark red blood slowly spread out from the back of her head. Chapter 235. Ah, Antoine. Xiao Mu softly repeated these 3 words, her tone containing an unusual playfulness. You don't understand why. You don't need to understand. You only need to know that I don't need you to participate in my future life. If you had obediently stayed far away from me, I could have let you off. However, since you foolishly wanted to approach me, then I can only let you die. I don't mind staining my hands with your blood because you owed me in your previous life. Karma is a cycle of retribution. Since the heavens chose not to take revenge, then I'll personally take care of you, this scourge. Arbor stood in front of the railings and looked ahead with a serene gaze. The afterglow of dusk dyed the distant sky red, which contrasted well with the blood-red color in front of him. Her small body was abruptly lifted up horizontally. Only she knew how tense her body was, but it slightly relaxed under this oppressive warmth. Clean it up, the crown prince said and left with the child without looking back. Hidden Flower, who was standing on the platform and facing the mirror to tidy up his messy hair and rotting flesh, sighed when he heard the crown prince's words. I didn't expect that not only would I have to pretend to be a zombie, but I would also have to chase after a woman on the streets. Now, I have to stay behind to clean up the mess. Being a subordinate was such a bitter life. Hidden Flower lifted his sleeve and smelled the stench. He almost fainted from the stench. It must have been hard on the youth, Hidden Current, to pretend to be a zombie for so many days and dress up like this every day. It was truly smelly to death. Ah! Hidden Flower let out a series of zombie roars, and screamed until his throat was hoarse, attracting a crowd. Ahem ahem ahem. Pooh, I have to ask the crown prince for a few throat-soothing pills when I get home. My throat hurts from screaming. Unfortunately, after the youth roared for so long, how could the commoners dare to come and court death? They heard there were zombies in the theater, so who dared to barge in? Fortunately, someone went to inform City Lord Gu. City Lord Gu didn't come slowly. By the time he gathered a group of people and rushed over with an unsightly expression, almost an hour had passed. Not long after everyone stepped into the sparse garden, they saw Wen Ruan lying on the ground in front of the opera house. She died with remaining grievances. City Lord Gu and the others were shocked for a second. Many of them pointed their weapons at corpse Wen Ruan, afraid that she would jump out and become a zombie in the next second. After waiting for a long time without any response, City Lord Gu's face darkened as he waved his hand and said, "Go, go and search everywhere. Let's see if that zombie is still in the garden." Of course, he ended up with nothing. Hidden Flower wasn't stupid. After attracting people over, he slipped away. City Lord, what do we do with this young lady? Zhang Yan felt that the corpse woman looked familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen her before. After all, he dealt with so many people entering the city in a day. How could he remember everyone? I have to burn it quickly, in case it turns into a zombie. City Lord Gu made a prompt decision. Send someone to check her identity after burning it. We have to send a message to her family. After City Lord Gu finished speaking, he sighed. These days, he saw people die every day. City Lord Gu could be considered to be used to it. Zhang Yan nodded after hearing that. He directed a few brawny men to put the young lady into a corpse bag and transport her away. A fire burned Wen Ruan, burning everything to ashes. Something absent-mindedly flashed past Xiao Mu's eyes. She quietly stood on top of an arched bridge, her eyes fixated on the trickling water below the bridge. She flipped her small hand slightly, and a white jade porcelain bottle lay quietly in her palm. Chapter 236. This was the pill she stole from Wen Ruan. Apparently, it could help heal damaged mystic meridians. However, after Arbor repeatedly examined it, he discovered that it was only a normal meridian pill. It could only mediate the normal meridians in the body after consumption. It could not heal damaged mystic meridians like Wen Ruan said. Thus, strictly speaking, it was basically useless to her father. She remembered Wen Ruan saying that the pill was gifted to her by a wandering Taoist priest. That sounded untrue no matter how she listened to it. However, none of this mattered anymore because a person's death was like an extinguished lamp. Everything was no longer important. Splash! The small white jade bottle was thrown into the water, and it slowly sank into the water. Mo Lien grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the bottom of the bridge. You should feel better after being exposed to the wind for so long. Don't you think I'm cruel? The child lowered her head and kicked a small pebble at the tip of her foot. Emolien squeezed her hand with a smile. When I was 8 years old, I killed a personal nanny who took care of me and implicated many people. At the time, royal father ordered them all to be executed. Do you think I'm cruel? She harmed you. The little fellow raised her chin and stared at the youth with her pitch-black eyes. That's right. She poisoned me and was discovered. At the time, she begged me and knelt on the ground, crying and shouting. She told me from when I was 3 years old to when I was 7. She kept on confessing that she used to take care of me so attentively. Emolien absent-mindedly raised her head and glanced at the distant night. I didn't forgive her. Moreover, I personally executed her. I used to respect her a lot. She was a woman who looked very benevolent. She deserved to die, Xiao Xiao said coldly. You didn't do anything wrong. What right did a traitor have to cry and shout in front of you? If it were me, I would have made her beg for death. That so-called friend from her previous life better pray to the gods and Buddha that he didn't appear in front of her. Otherwise, she wouldn't let him go. Are you going back? The child tugged at Prince Mo's hand. I'm not busy. I can stay for a few more days. Huifeng, who was secretly following them in the dark, quietly exchanged a glance with Ao Yi. In the past 2 days, impeachment letters had been sent to the queen like snowflakes. The matter of the crown prince abandoning state affairs and running away in the middle of the night had even startled the queen dowager. How could she be as indifferent as a certain master said? Emolien suddenly picked up the child and sniffed her tiny neck. Why do you have a stench on you? Arbor. He really wanted to slap this guy to death. Wasn't the stench caused by him? It's your subordinate's stench. Your subordinate passed the stench to me. The child rolled his eyes. When he thought of how Hidden Flower had disguised himself as a zombie and chased after them, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Then I'll go back and punish him later. I'll help you vent your anger, okay? The crown prince said with a straight face. Arbor couldn't help but be curious and looked up at him. What do you plan on punishing him for? Making him disguise himself as a zombie for half a month and not allowing him to bathe. What do you think of this method? Emolien lowered her head and winked at the child. Ao Yi and Huifeng, who were secretly following them, both felt their feet slip. They deeply sympathized with the captain of the hidden pavilion. The child's eyes immediately turned round. Then he's not allowed to appear in front of me again. Otherwise, she might faint from the stench. Chapter 237. Okay. The crown prince immediately nodded. This pair of heartless people decided Hidden Flower's tragic fate for the next half a month with just a few sentences. Ao Yi and Huifeng looked at each other and both observed a moment of silence for Hidden Flower. Today is the Thousand Flower Festival. It's rare for it to be so lively, but the good atmosphere was ruined, Arbor lamented in a small voice. The two of them walked down the street. The ground was littered with flowers, and there was not a single person in sight. The crowd must have been scared back home. Isn't this pretty good? You like peace and quiet, and I also like this kind of peaceful atmosphere. Emolien smiled. The ground is littered with flowers, the little fellow muttered. She lay on the youth's shoulder and looked up at the night sky. It's ugly. Only a ray of moonlight faintly shone down. The moonlight was warm. Emolien chuckled and pointed up. Isn't it easy to see flowers? Look over there. Under the moonlight in the distance, a shower of flowers spun up. Colorful petals fluttered down, and it was as if they were performing a beautiful flower dance under the night sky. A few petals were blown by the night wind and stuck to the child's upturned face. The night sky had been replaced by the brilliance of luminous pearls. Red, yellow, pink, and green petals fluttered in the air. It's beautiful. The child's unbreakable frozen face showed signs of cracking. Her lips tugged into an uncoordinated smile, and she subconsciously reached out to grab the falling petals. This truly was the Thousand Flower Festival, not just in name but also in reality. The gloominess brought about by when Rowan's death was completely swept away now. For you. The youth handed a small box adorned with round purple gems to the child. The child opened the box and saw that it was not jewelry but a box full of colorful petals. The fragrance assailed her nostrils. For a moment, her heart was touched, and a warm ray of sunlight seemed to shine into the darkest corner of her heart. You stink. I'll let you smell it when you take a bath at home, the youth said with a serious expression. Fuck. The sunlight is gone. My feelings and whatnot were all fed to the dogs. You're the stinky one. The child slammed the box shut and turned his head with a biting expression. Emolien chuckled and walked through a sea of flowers with the child in his arms. His figure gradually disappeared into the night. By the time Arbor was carried back to the original street by the youth, the siblings met up, and the children were sent home by the crown prince. It was almost late at night. Qiao Zhongbang, his wife, and second uncle Qiao had been waiting anxiously for a long time and couldn't sit still. Second uncle Qiao had even gone out to search and brought back the bad news of a zombie attack on the streets. Just as the family was about to go out and search again, the children came back. Wei Ziqin heaved a sigh of relief. She reached out to pull her eldest daughter over and asked worriedly, "Child, are you all right? Is it true that a zombie sneaked into the city?" "It's true." Arbor nodded. "That zombie attacked Aunt Wen." "I'm sorry, Mother. I chased after Aunt Wen but couldn't find her. The zombie might have chased her far away. I was worried about Shaolin, so I went back to look for them. I didn't continue to chase after Aunt Wen." Wei Ziqin shuddered with fear. Only then did Qiao Zhongbang and second uncle Qiao realize that when Rowan did not come back with them. The family hastily thanked the crown prince for escorting the children back. His Highness the Crown Prince naturally gained a favorable impression in front of the Qiao family. Chapter 238. Mother, I'm useless. I couldn't save Aunt Wen, Qiao Mu said expressionlessly. Fortunately, this child was used to being expressionless all year round. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't be able to pretend to feel guilty or something. Silly child. The adults continuously imagined the scene of the child chasing with all her might but turning back helplessly. They all comforted her, "Silly girl, how old are you? It's already good that you can protect yourself." "That's right." Father said emotionally, "It's good that you all came back safely." Second uncle Qiao sighed and concluded, "Life is hard to predict. This is also fate. Miss Wen is too unlucky. She even said some inauspicious things when she went out, and in the end." The child's face was expressionless, but she actually wanted to laugh in her heart. Qiao Zhongbang and the others comforted her again before sending off the crown prince with a smile. They hurriedly let the children wash up and rest. In the side room, Arbor leaned over the bathtub and flipped through the jeweled box filled with flower petals. She snorted softly and pouted. Lifting up a few petals and sprinkling them on the water, Arbor kicked her small feet in the water. She raised her small hand slightly, and a blue talisman quietly floated in front of her. She took out the pot of flowers from the storage talisman and placed it on the round stool beside the bathtub. Arbor's small hand held a pair of small scissors horizontally. "Cho-Cho, are you asleep?" Arbor approached the flower with the scissors and cut off one of the flower buds. She peeled off the petals one by one, revealing the light green stamen. There were a dozen small green beads on the small stamen. They were small and round, and their skin was soft. They couldn't be pinched and could only be taken lightly. They looked very delicate. Arbor's movements were light and fast. She took these small green beads one by one and placed them all on one of the petals. "Can you tell me how I know that this isn't a begonia at all?" "It's a medicinal plant called the green radish flower." Arbor reached out and gently fiddled with the small beads. Every budding green radish flower has a dozen green radish seeds in its stamen. The poison pills made from this will be thousands of times stronger than the poison pill that the young miss of the prince's mansion gave me. Arbor raised his head, the corners of his mouth slightly curved as he stared at the pot of radish flowers. Other than the flower bud that she had taken away, there were 3 or 4 smaller ones in the pot. Other than that, the large blooming flowers had already lost their medicinal value. Cho-Cho, did I really learn medical skills from someone? Why? Can't I remember? Arbor's small hand stirred the water in the tub. His voice was a little low, and for some reason, his chest felt a little stuffy. Little Master, Cho-Cho only remembers that you've memorized countless medical and poison books such as the 10,000 Poison Holy Scroll. Your master is actually very powerful. However, because Little Mistress had traveled through time and space to be reborn, a large portion of your power had been sealed, which caused a portion of your memories to be lost. If Cho-Cho could appear in front of Little Chow right now, it would definitely have a serious expression on its face. Little Mistress, after you were sealed, Cho-Cho was actually the most pitiful one. What the heck was with this sudden change in style and crying tone? Cho-Cho used a very, very, very long time to accumulate that little bit of power. It wasn't easy for me to grow 2 leaves. Luckily, after Little Mistress was sealed, those 2 gluttons were also sealed on the main planet. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to keep my 2 leaves. I remember you said that your leaves can not only increase one's perception of mystic energy, but also strengthen the body and extend the lifespan of ordinary people? The sapling shuddered in his dantian, feeling that something bad was about to happen. Chapter 239. Cho-Cho, leaves. Ha, ha. Master, actually, after you were sealed, Cho-Cho's memories also became incomparably chaotic. That's why I sometimes remember something, and sometimes I don't remember anything. Cho-Cho awkwardly tried to change the topic. Furthermore, Master probably doesn't know. The items in your inner world that you can see with your naked eyes are only a small part of it. Your inner world hasn't been fully opened, so you can't really use it right now. Furthermore, compared to the resources on your main planet, even if your inner world is fully opened, the items on your main planet are only a drop in the ocean. Cho-Cho sighed with emotion. Arbor chuckled. Don't try to say such strange things. Forcefully changing the topic. Cho-Cho, give me the leaves. Little Master, believe me, Cho-Cho is telling the truth. If Little Master can reach rank 7 cultivation now, Cho-Cho can immediately help you integrate the Heart of Paradise into the star domain. In the future, Little Master won't have to go through so much trouble and have to take out the Heart of Paradise every time you want to store something. Furthermore, you can enter Paradise Planet yourself. After blabbering on and on, Arbor's large eyes widened slightly, and he roared, Leaves! Leaves! Whoa 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 whoa! Cho-Cho shook its bare branches as it watched its only 2 leaves being snatched away by its unscrupulous little master. Ah, it felt a chill in its heart. Arbor crawled out of the water and carelessly wiped himself clean before putting on his inner clothes. He lowered his head to look at the 2 lush green leaves in his palm and asked softly, Cho-Cho, can I still see Master? I'm afraid that's very difficult. I only remember that your soul was unstable at that time. If you continued to stay by your master's side, you would have completely disappeared. That's why I remember your master and your martial uncle. It was your master and martial uncle who borrowed the power of space-time to send you back. So the reason I was reborn here was actually by master and martial uncle's doing. And before that, as a soul, I wandered the world for who knows how many years. Arbor suddenly reached out to grab the inner clothes in front of his chest, feeling some pain in his heart that made him unable to breathe. Ah, those years of wandering, just what kind of important thing have I forgotten? My master? What's my master's name? Arbor asked uneasily as he sat on the edge of the bed. What is my name? Ah, my little disciple still doesn't know her master's name? A figure suddenly jumped in through the window. Under the faint moonlight, she gave her a very beautiful smile. Master naturally calls you Murong Sun. Arbor was dumbfounded. Wasn't Morong-sun's arrival too coincidental? Her reply was also especially smooth and seamless. Little disciple, what's with your expression? Aren't you happy to see your master? Morong-sun flashed in front of her and picked up this soft and cuddly child. She chuckled and said, "You truly are a little rascal. We haven't seen each other for so long, but you didn't miss your master at all?" "Master, we've been back from Qinghe town for several days. It was eldest senior sister who said you didn't know where you went for a stroll, and it was you who abandoned the disciples." The little stoic replied. Morong-sun did not feel awkward at all. Instead, she guffawed and rubbed the child's stoic face. "Disciple, master and your senior sisters are going back to the sect tomorrow. Do you want to come with us?" Arbor was silent for a moment before saying, "Sorry, master." This disciple was willful. "I want to wait until mother gives birth to a younger brother or sister before I go back to the sect." Morong-sun pinched the child's face with a smile. "Child, why are you so old? At your age, this is the time to be willful and reckless. Don't worry, you can be willful as much as you want. Master is here for everything." Chapter 240. Master. Arbor turned her small head to look at her. "Why do you keep pinching my face?" Morong-sun said matter-of-factly, "You have facial paralysis, so master will pinch it for you to see when your face can become more lively." Arbor. Morong-sun chuckled and placed the child on a stool. She pulled out a map from her sleeve and stuffed it into the child's hands. "Do you know Five Moon City? It's quite far from Imo Kingdom. You have to leave the northern part of planet Seikong and head west to the Great Snow Mountain outside Five Moon City. That's our Holy Water Sect's headquarters. Although many countries exist side by side in the northern part, Imo Kingdom is very powerful and has basically unified the northern part, so the northern part won't be too chaotic. The western part is different. The tribes and clans in the western part mostly fight each other, and there are all kinds of chaotic battles every day. I'm afraid there are also many mutated zombies." Morong-sun stroked the child's confused face. "How about master leave someone here to wait for you? I'll bring you back to the sect when the time comes." Arbor hastily shook her head. She was not a real 7-year-old child and needed an adult to accompany her to school. Moreover, 2 months of time was neither long nor short, so why should she delay her senior sister's cultivation time? "You little girl, didn't master say you could be willful and act spoiled with master at any time? You're so sensible that even master's heart aches when I see you." Morong-sun reached out to rub the child's icy face. "When you go to the sect to cultivate this time, you'll have to let go of everything in the secular world. You won't be able to return home for at most 8 to 10 years, or at least 3 to 5 years. It's good that you stay for a few more days. You can properly say goodbye to your family and have a good talk with your parents." "Okay." Arbor nodded obediently. "There's an extremely rich mystical treasured land on our sect's snow mountain. The mystic energy there is so dense that you can't imagine it. I believe you'll like it a lot, my disciple. Hurry and come, okay? Silly disciple, don't make master wait too long." After Morong-sun finished giving her instructions, she finally finished pinching her petite face and elegantly slipped through the window. Before she left, she even left behind a seductive sentence. Seriously, Morong-sun was definitely doing this on purpose. What treasured land with unimaginable mystic energy density. My ass, it made people's hearts flutter. Master Silver, let's go now. Mystical treasured land. Just the sound of it was amazing. His profound energy was definitely very, very thick and enormous. I want to suck. Chio's exaggerated cries rang out in her mind. Shut up, don't make so much noise. I'll bring you there in 2 months. Xiao Mu tiredly opened her mouth and gave a small yawn. After a busy night, she truly couldn't take it anymore. She climbed onto the bed and rolled into the thin blanket, wrapping her small body like a cicada cocoon. Even her small head was tucked into the thin blanket, leaving only her black hair hanging outside. Arbor closed her eyes. Her forehead, which was buried in the thin blanket, glistened with beads of sweat. In reality, there was no need to wrap herself so tightly in this hot weather. However, she was used to it and felt that the tighter she wrapped herself, the more secure she felt. At noon the next day, Arbor was woken up by the warm sunlight falling on her eyes. The child wrapped in the thin blanket was drenched in sweat. She flung the blanket off her body and got up. After washing up and changing into a clean and fresh set of clothes, Arbor went down the attic. She actually slept until noon. It looked like she really was tired yesterday. Her physical exhaustion was secondary, but the most important thing was her mental exhaustion. Chapter 241. As soon as Arbor entered the main hall, he paused in his steps. As it turned out, City Lord Gu and Mr. Zhang were also present. They were talking to their parents and second uncle. Elderly Lady Qiao was sitting at the side, her eyes red as though she had just cried. Sun Yang consoled her from the side. Elderly Lady Qiao wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and sighed. Rowan was truly a poor child. I didn't expect something like this to happen yesterday. Her death was truly too unjust. City Lord Gu's eyes brightened when he saw Arbor enter. He hastily walked up and politely greeted the child. Miss Qiao, were you frightened by yesterday's incident? Arbor naturally pretended to be hesitant and nodded. City Lord Gu came to deliver when Rowan's ashes. After cremating her, he should at least leave some ashes for her family as a memento. City Lord Gu was shocked when he found out Rowan's identity last night. He was still on tenterhooks when he came to visit, afraid that the little girl would angrily rebuke him. However, it seemed that this Miss Wen did not have much status in this family. After all, she was an outsider and was only slightly related to elderly Lady Qiao. Although Qiao Zhongbang and his wife sighed, they were not sad. They calmly received the news of her death. After all, they had only interacted with Rowan for a few days. Qiao Zhongbang felt that this Miss Wen had a lot of thoughts. When City Lord Gu and Mr. Zhang went out, they coincidentally saw the Crown Prince enter the Qiao residence. City Lord Gu hastily said to Mr. Zhang, "Has Miss Qiao's reward from the previous mission been delivered?" "It has." "Don't worry, sir." Then hurry up and send some things over. Just say it's supplementary reward. His Highness the Crown Prince eats, lives, and comes to the Qiao residence every day, right? We can't let a little girl spend money to feed His Highness, right? That's not good. His Highness was a bit shameless. Mr. Zhang was dumbfounded. What the hell was Sir Gu thinking? You're saying His Highness is a freeloader behind his back. How much do you want to die? Oh. Little Mo is here. Wei Ziqin smiled happily when she saw Mo Lian. She hurriedly invited him in and sat down. Jojo just woke up. Let's have lunch early. Jojo must be hungry too. Auntie, you don't have to work so hard. Just eat something. Prince Mo, who used to have "I'm hard to please" written all over his body, responded with a smile and put on a face that said, "I only need a bowl of rice to satisfy you." Arbor stealthily shot a murderous glare at this guy. He couldn't help but raise his chin at him, indicating for him to scram. This damned fellow, he came to their house every day and was especially familiar with his father and second uncle. Where did these three men get so much nonsense from? A certain crown prince was well-read and intelligent. As long as he was willing, he could really talk about any topic. Whether it was martial arts techniques or military affairs, he could talk about anything. Therefore, father and second uncle were really chatting with the crown prince. The more they chatted, the happier they were. They kept praising young Master Imo, saying that he was knowledgeable and had exceptional talent. They were really putting all the good things they had on him. In just 2 or 3 days, he took in her entire family. Even the little foodie would say, "Big brother," this time every time she saw the crown prince. Darling Chow was really infuriated. This group of people with no moral integrity had all changed sides in a moment of inexplicable carelessness. Come out. Arbor gave a certain crown prince a murderous look. Wei Ziqin hurriedly went up to pat Xiao Mu's head. She looked at her daughter in complaint. What are you saying, child? Don't be fierce to little Imo. Chapter 242. Yes, don't yell at me. Crown Prince nodded repeatedly, his almond-shaped eyes sweeping over the child as he chuckled. How infuriating. Mother wasn't even Jojo's biological mother anymore. Ahem. Madame Chow coughed lightly, trying to attract Arbor's attention. Jojo. I heard that grandmother's body hasn't been well these past 2 days. Arbor turned his head and replied coldly, Sun Yang, why aren't you helping grandmother back to her room to rest? Madame Chow was so angry that she pursed her lips. She hadn't even finished speaking. Judging from the little girl's string of words, she probably didn't want to see her at all. Madame Chow hurriedly sat up straight and rushed to say, Jojo, do you have any good medicine on you? Grandmother's hand accidentally bled this morning. If you have any good medicine, lend it to grandmother to apply it. Madame Chow forced a smile at the little girl. She rolled up her right sleeve, revealing a red, glistening wound on the back of her hand. Mother, where did you get hurt? Qiao Zhongbang jumped up. He was close and saw that the wound was quite long and deep. Qiao Zhongbang's heart ached for his mother, and he couldn't help but complain, Sun Yang, how are you taking care of Madame Chow? How did you let Madame Chow get hurt like this? Sun Yang was also shocked. She hurriedly shook her head and said, Master, this old servant really doesn't know when Madame Chow hurt her hand. Arbor and Crown Prince approached one after another, looking down to examine the wound carefully. When she raised her head, Xiao Mu tugged the corner of her mouth at elderly Lady Chow and tossed her a cold, thought-provoking smile. Madame Chow froze for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. However, her old face quickly calmed down, and she continued to look at Arbor innocently. Jojo, do you have any good medicine? Yes, I have all kinds of medicine. Arbor's smile becomes more and more interesting. She takes out a small box of high-quality ointment from her waist. It's the leftover ointment that Imo Liushi used to scratch her. Grandmother, let your granddaughter apply it to your wound. Granddaughter can show her filial piety, Arbor said softly with a smile. The old lady felt goosebumps all over her body. She was really not used to the little guy speaking so politely to her. There's no need. I'll go back to my room and apply it myself. Madame Chow snatched the ointment from Arbor's hand and hurriedly stuffed it into her pocket. She got up and said that she had a headache and wanted to go back to her room to rest. Then, she fled without looking back. Xiao Yao, you stay here with mother and sister. Father, second uncle, come with me. As soon as the old lady left, Arbor's little face turned cold. Second uncle and Father Chow looked at each other, their hearts sinking. The old lady took the medicine and hurried back to the house. As soon as she entered the house, she was disgusted by the rotten smell. She endured the discomfort and hurriedly pushed open the door to the small room. She called out softly, Wan, quickly come and apply the medicine. Mother got the ointment. A woman with long, withered, and disheveled hair suddenly turned around. There were dark circles under her eyes. Qiao Wenwan snatched the ointment from the old lady's hand and complained anxiously, why were you gone for so long? Ever since the day she was scratched by the zombie, her wound had never healed. It was even worse these 2 days. It actually started to fester and rot, and she even saw a small piece of rotten flesh fall off her arm. No matter what ointment she applied, it didn't help. She remembered that her niece had a lot of high-quality ointment on her, so she took the risk to sneak into the Chow family in the middle of the night to ask her mother for help. Chapter 243. It's not like you don't know that your niece is more cunning than a ghost. If she knew that you snuck home, she would definitely chase you and even me out of the house without mercy, old Madame Chow said with lingering fear. Mom will help you apply it. Old Madame Chow looked at the wound on her daughter's arm worriedly, and tears streamed down her face. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. How could it not hurt? Chow Wen-wan felt that the ointment did have a cooling and anti-swelling effect when applied on her arm, but there was too little ointment. Mom, go get some more from the little bitch. This little isn't enough. Bam! Chow Mu violently kicked open the door with a loud bang. The mother and daughter in the room jumped in shock, and the ointment in their hands almost fell to the ground. Old Madame Chow glared at Arbor and stood up agitatedly. Why did you barge in? Dad, second uncle, she mutated. She's no longer human. Arbor took out a crossbow and aimed it at Chow Wen-wan with an icy expression. From the looks of it, this woman's incubation period was about to end. In 1 or 2 days, she would completely mutate into a zombie. Old Madame Chow hid her in the room. That was a disregard for her own life and the lives of her entire family. Mom! Chow Zhongbang stared at his mother, dumbfounded. He was so angry that he didn't know what to say. This muddle-headed mother. No wonder she had been hiding in the room since yesterday. So she had secretly hidden Wen-wan in the room. Old Madame Chow cried. Eldest brother, second brother, the person standing in front of you is your biological sister. You can't treat her like this. Ah! Arbor shot an arrow, but it didn't hit Chow Wen-wan. Instead, it was nailed to the cupboard door. Because Chow Wen-wan's dodging speed was quite fast, Chow Mu couldn't help but be taken aback by this strange speed. Chow Zhongbang broke out in a cold sweat as he watched. He dragged his panic-stricken mother over and yelled impatiently, "Old mother, did Chow Wen-wan scratch your hand?" She wasn't caught. Arbor said coldly, her wound is deep, shallow, and crooked. It's obvious that the pain was unbearable when she cut herself open. Madame Chow was really desperate for Chow Wen-wan. She didn't even hesitate to cut her own hand to get Arbor's ointment. Mother, Wen-wan has mutated. Listen to me. She really can't stay here. Otherwise, it will harm our entire family. Second Uncle Chow also advised. Second brother, are you still human? How dare you say such things? She's your sister. Madame Chow angrily slapped her son. Chow Wen-wan hid beside the cupboard and looked at them with a grimace. Suddenly, she shouted, "You're the mutated ones. You are the ones who deserve to die. Since no one wants to make things easy for me, I'll make you all die with me." With that, he pounced forward and grabbed the back of Old Lady Chow's head with both hands. Old Lady Chow was stunned. She didn't expect her daughter to attack her again. Seeing that Chow Wen-wan's claws were less than an inch away from the back of the old lady's head, a spark suddenly exploded on her hand, causing her to immediately let out a miserable howl. She fell backwards, and the 2 bones in her hand were exposed outside the skin. Old Lady Chow's lips trembled as she turned back to look at her daughter in shock. There wasn't a trace of blood between her broken hands. She really wasn't alive. What a sin! Old Lady Chow was overcome with grief, and tears streamed down her face. She couldn't accept the fact that her flower-like daughter had turned into a zombie no matter what. Chapter 244. No, don't kill her. She's innocent, and she didn't want to end up like this. She was harmed by someone else. Elderly Lady Chow pulled her son to her knees. Let her go. Let your sister go. Mom, your son can't agree to this. Sister isn't human anymore. You can't let her go out and harm people. Chow Zhongbang wasn't ambiguous about this matter at all. Slap! Elderly Lady Chow slapped her son's face, her wrinkled old hand trembling non-stop in midair. She pointed at Chow Zhongbang and angrily roared, "Unfilial son." Chow Zhongbang's left cheek immediately turned red and swollen. It was clear how much strength the elderly lady had used to slap him. Mom, have you gone senile? Second Uncle Qiao stomped his feet in anger. He pulled over his eldest brother, who was standing foolishly in front of his mother, and used his body to shield his angry mother as he roared, Qiao Wenwan is already dead. Eldest brother is also very sad, and I'm also very sad. But what can we do? We can't bring Qiao Wenwan back from the dead. We can't let her harm you, Mom. She'll harm the whole family. The elderly lady pointed at the two brothers with a trembling finger. Her tears flowed endlessly, and she couldn't stop the grief in her heart. Her daughter, the daughter that she had raised lovingly and lovingly. Arbor rudely grabbed the elderly lady's arm and forcefully pushed her back. He sternly said, Sun Yang, send the elderly lady to the west wing to rest. Don't come out if there's nothing else. Sun Yang's hands trembled slightly, and she hurriedly caught the elderly lady's tilted body. Half dragging and half pulling, she supported the shrieking elderly lady out the door. Qiao Wenwan crawled up from the ground. Her head was crooked abnormally, and her bulging eyes stared intently at Arbor. Suddenly, she roared and pounced at him. Bang! Bang bang bang! The crown prince merely lifted his finger slightly, and several fire orbs were sent to Qiao Wenjuan's side, where they exploded with a bang. Qiao Wenjuan's face was blown beyond recognition. She couldn't even get close to Arbor. Qiao Zhongbang looked at Qiao Wenjuan's miserable state with a gloomy face, his fists tightly clenched together. Roar! Roar! Qiao Wenwan lay on the ground and let out an inhuman roar. The roar spread to the front hall and startled Wei Ziqin, who couldn't sit still. She hurriedly held Xiao Lin's hand and stood up. Xiao Yao hurriedly stopped the two of them and said, Madam, it's better not to go over. Although she didn't know what happened to old Madam, Xiao Yao could guess that something big must have happened when she heard the commotion and saw Mrs. expression before she left. Madam was pregnant and it was inconvenient for her to move around. It was best not to join in the fun to avoid any accidents. However, how could Wei Ziqin sit still? She grabbed Xiao Yao's hand and said, Don't worry, I won't go near. I'll just take a look from afar. With that said, she walked towards old Madam's room. As expected, she didn't go near. She just stood at the end of the corridor far away and looked at old Madam's wide-open room door. Suddenly, a zombie with disheveled hair rushed out of the door. Her daughter also rushed out of the room with a crossbow. She had just aimed at the zombie's head when the crossbow in her little hand was snatched away by her husband with a smack. Dad? Arbor's little face darkened, and she looked up at Xiao Zhongbang. At a time like this, could it be that Dad wants to be heartless? Soft. Right. Our dear Qiao Mu looked at her father with disappointment. When Xiao Zhongbang saw that small gaze, it felt like the father and daughter's positions were reversed. His daughter looked like she was looking at some good-for-nothing child. The melancholy and disappointment in her gaze was simply brilliant. Chapter 245. Jojo. Don't do it yourself, let Dad do it. However, Qiao Zhongbang, with a dark expression, suddenly raised the crossbow in his hand and shot an arrow at the head of Qiao Wenwan, who was running away screaming. He was so swift and decisive that he didn't seem like her indecisive, good-for-nothing father at all. Whoosh. The arrow immediately pierced Qiao Wenjuan's head and pulled her forward a few steps before she fell to the ground with a plop. Arbor's eyes curved slightly as he secretly glanced at his father. His father probably didn't want him to deal with this little ant, right? He was using his own method to protect his daughter. If this crime of killing his wife had to be shouldered by someone, then he, Qiao Zhongbang, would be the one to shoulder it. Even if Mom wasn't willing to forgive him for the rest of her life. Even if Mom blamed him for the rest of his life. Qiao Zhongbang reached out to stop Arbor as he ran forward with the crossbow and kicked Xiao Wenjuan's leg twice. Seeing that she didn't move, he finally sighed in relief. Second uncle went forward to check again before saying to Arbor and Qiao Zhongbang, This is a serious matter. I don't know if Qiao Wenwan injured anyone when she snuck into the city. I'll go to the city lord's manor to report and have the city lord send someone to clean up this corpse. Arbor nodded in agreement. Second uncle is right. Thank you for making this trip, second uncle. Second uncle hurriedly waved his hand and hurriedly left. Wei Ziqin, who was standing in the corridor with her heart on edge, took a deep breath and hurriedly walked over to the father and daughter. Jojo, Zhongbang, what's going on? Why did a zombie run out of this house? Are you guys okay? Qiao Zhongbang smiled bitterly at his wife. Qiao Wenwan fell to the ground, and her face was a mess from the fire spirit's explosion. Wei Ziqin naturally didn't recognize who this person was. Let's talk in the front yard. When Wei Ziqin found out that the corpse puppet just now was actually a mutated Qiao Wenwan, she couldn't help but be shocked. Wei Ziqin looked at her husband worriedly and asked, Mom. Qiao Zhongbang smiled bitterly and waved his hand. Let her be. Soon, second uncle and city lord Gu rushed over with a team of people from the corpse disposal team and swiftly carried Qiao Wenwan away. Wei Ziqin stood up and looked at Mo Lian. Little Mo, you must be hungry. I'm sorry that something like this happened at home. It's all right, Auntie. No one wants this kind of thing to happen. You should persuade Uncle to console him. I think Uncle's mood won't be too good for the next 2 days. A certain crown prince walked past Xiao Mu and suddenly winked at her. Good child, you're so considerate. Wei Ziqin smiled as she looked at the young man. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. Arbor reached out a small hand at her mother's back. I'm so angry. Mom, I'm your biological daughter, okay? I'm the poor child who hasn't eaten a single grain of rice since I was born. Bam! Arbor sat down on the stool in a huff. A figure suddenly appeared next to the child, and before she could react, her small body was lifted high into the air. Jojo, you must be tired. I'll carry you to the dining room. Prince Mo walked gracefully with the child in his arms and received the praising gazes of good young man from Qiao Mu and Xiao Mu. Let's go wash our hands and eat. Wash your sister's hands. I'm not a child. Put me down, you jerk. Prince Mo secretly chuckled, but he hadn't taken 2 steps when he heard Duan Yu's voice from the door. Jojo, is Jojo home? Prince Mo turned around with Miss Qiao in his arms and shot a murderous look at Duan Yu, who was running over. Untactful guy. Why did he come to join in the fun? Could Jojo's family's favorability be improved by just anyone? Don't even think about it. Humph. Chapter 246. Little Mo, eat more. Wei Ziqin kept putting food into Prince Mo's bowl and didn't forget to call out to Duan Yu. Ah, you eat too. Xiao Lin watched as the food that originally belonged to her was placed into the 2 youths' bowls. She could only aggrievedly gnaw on the bun in her hand. Arbor felt even more aggrieved and exhausted. She wanted to eat a piece of meat, so her parents rushed to give meat to the 2 youths. She wanted to eat a mouthful of vegetables, so her parents took turns to make the 2 youths eat more vegetables. In the end, she wanted to drink a mouthful of soup, but her mother snatched the large soup ladle from her hand and eagerly ladled a large bowl for Prince Mo. How infuriating! How could there be such differential treatment? After finally finishing lunch with a stifled heart, the unscrupulous parents carried Xiao Lin and pulled Xiao Hu away. The child scowled as she bounced to the reception pavilion next door and sat down in an armchair. She stared at the approaching Duan Yu. Why are you still here? Don't the people from your sect need to go back? Prince Mo nodded in agreement and slowly walked to the child's side to sit down. Duan Yu felt like he was already used to the child's insults, so he didn't mind her cold attitude at all. He ran to her and placed a box in front of the child. For you. On the side, the crown prince immediately glared daggers at Duan Yu. This punk actually dared to use a gift to trick the little girl. The child opened the box and saw that it was 5 core ravaging thunders that could blow up half a mountain. Although her face was expressionless, the two youths could sense that much of the pressure around the child had dissipated. The child had always been very straightforward when it came to accepting gifts. She would silently accept them if they were given to her. You still want to be polite? Don't even think about it. I'm already giving you enough face by not leaving with the gift after accepting it. I'm going back to the daybreak sect with them in the afternoon. Duan Yu pursed his lips. I probably won't be able to come out for 2 to 3 years. However, I heard that the 3 sects will have a competition every few years. We will still have a chance to meet again in the future. Oh. The child nodded. After saying so much, you only replied with an oh. How can we continue chatting happily like this? This child's expressionless face seemed to have a special skill that could kill a conversation. Okay, got it. Moi Chen raised his hand and picked up the child who was caught off guard. He turned around and waved his sleeves to send the guest off. You should go back and pack up, so I won't send you off. Housekeeper, please send the guest out. This guy was overstepping his authority. Why do you act like you're the master of my house? The child reached out and punched him. He wanted to struggle again, but his little hand fell into Prince Mo's hand. The child laid on Prince Mo's shoulder, and his round eyes glanced at the miserable Duan Yu one last time. After some thought, he extended his other small paw and symbolically waved it at him. Bon voyage. Woo. Why did I read such heartless words from her eyes? A smooth journey ended just like that. He still had a lot of farewell words to say before he was forcefully sent off. Was this really okay? At least he should say that he might miss him in the next few years. Ah. If only time could stop at this moment. The tall and frivolous youth stood by the door and warmly looked in the direction the little girl left. Under his long eyelashes, a faint smile appeared in his clear peach blossom eyes. Just you wait, damn girl. Chapter 247. Mo youngster lowered his head to glance at the box the child was hugging. With a light snort, he reached out to take the box from her and tossed it onto a stool at the side. The child glared at him with round eyes. Stinky brat, you're too rude. Why are your eyes so round? Prince Mo chuckled and sat down with the child in his arms. No matter how round your eyes are, you're still an expressionless little stoic. So what if she's stoic? I love stoic faces. I also love stoic faces. Prince Mo nodded in agreement. He turned the child around to face him and looked at her with a grin. If we're separated for 3 to 5 years, will you miss me? The child raised her chin awkwardly. I won't. Prince Mo broke into laughter. He shifted the child's awkward face back and planted a kiss on her forehead. I'll miss Jojo, I'll miss you a lot. I'll miss you a lot, a lot. I'll miss you a lot. The child's expression was dazed for a moment. Being dazed was a huge improvement compared to being expressionless. Dazed was also a type of expression, Crown Prince thought. The Crown Prince swiped through the air and stuffed a large bag of jingling spirit stones into the child's arms. He rubbed her stoic little face and said, there are 500 spirit stones here. It should be enough for you to use for 3 to 5 years. Let that golem live. When I'm not here, let that guy talk to you in my place. You know, Jojo, you have to talk more. Don't stop talking just because you think it's tiring. How can talking tire you? Look at this child. If no one talked to her, she would probably be mute for the entire day. Oh. I've said so much, and you only freaking said oh. Darling Xiao, you can really kill a conversation at any time. You're not allowed to say it. Mo youngster smiled helplessly and pressed his forehead against hers. The child rolled his eyes and reached out to take out the little golem, placing a spirit stone in its stomach. In less than a second, the noisy golem jumped up and danced as it sang, Little Master, Little Master, Little Master, you're awesome, Little Master, you're finally not stingy. You're the stingy one, your whole family is stingy. I gave it a name. Kid reached out and pressed on the golem's head. The young man smiled and looked at her. What's your name? His name is Debeo. Oh, little master has given me a name. Big Treasure, my name is Big Treasure. The golem waved its small arms and legs as it spun around on the spot. Emolien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She looked down at the child and smiled. Why are you called Debeo? The child tilted his head and blinked his big, watery eyes. I don't know. I just thought of it. Emolien couldn't help but smile and teased her. Is it because you're called Little Bao that you call it Big Bao? The child's eyes suddenly widened as he stared at the youth in front of him in a daze, not reacting for a long time. Emolien couldn't help but panic a little. She hugged her and shook her a little. Jojo, what's wrong with Jojo? Arbor snapped out of his daze and looked at him blankly. What did you just call me? Jojo? Arbor shook her head. Little Bao. What was so strange about the name Little Bao? Why was the child's expression so strange? Jojo. It's nothing. Arbor nodded in a daze. It's nothing, it's nothing. Although Emolien was a little puzzled, she didn't continue asking since she had recovered. Arbor raised her hand to keep the bag of spirit stones and looked at Crown Prince. Are we leaving tomorrow? Prince Emo nodded and looked at the child with a serious expression. Tonight, we'll have a reunion dinner with Uncle and Auntie and say goodbye. Arbor's little face instantly darkened. Chapter 248. As expected, Father and Mother Chiao enjoyed dinner to their heart's content. Second Uncle Chiao even told Arbor to bring out 3 jars of bamboo leaf wine and drink 10 or so cups with the youth. Seeing that the youth didn't hold back at all, Second Uncle Chiao actually had the idea of competing with the youth's alcohol tolerance. In the end, Second Uncle drank until he collapsed. Arbor helplessly pursed her lips. Second Uncle, don't casually compete with others if your alcohol tolerance isn't good. Look at how you collapsed when the second jar was just opened, but the youth's expression didn't change at all. Seeing that it was getting late, Father and Mother Chiao enthusiastically invited the youth to stay the night. Arbor felt that something wasn't right, but she couldn't put her finger on it. She then thought about what the youth said earlier and racked her brain. Suddenly, a light bulb lit up, and she finally sensed that something wasn't right. He was a crown prince who had nothing to do with old Chiao's family. What was there to reunite with old Chiao's family? He even had the glorified excuse of having a reunion dinner with Uncle and Auntie. Darling Chiao secretly glared at the crown prince. Coincidentally, the crown prince sensed it and turned his head back. He flashed her a smile, and it was as if the sky was filled with stars. That face was truly blinding. How infuriating. Every time she ate with the crown prince, it was as if the baby had been picked up from the streets. Mother and father's attention was completely not on their own daughter. Second Uncle Chiao hugged the half-open jar of wine as he sprawled on the table and murmured in a daze, bamboo leaf wine, bamboo leaf wine. Wei Ziqin was overjoyed, and she hurriedly instructed Sun Yang to help Second Uncle back to rest. Arbor thought for a moment, then took out 6 peaches and 2 leaves from the storage talisman and placed them on the table. The peach trees in the paradise bore fruit very slowly. After so long, she had only plucked 6 peaches, and they had been stored in the storage talisman. There are fruits after the meal. 1 each. Eat. Peaches. The little foodie immediately jumped up and was the first to jump to Arbor's side, reaching out to grab one of the peaches. Yo, this peach grows well. Qiao Zhongbang immediately laughed. Father, eat this leaf first, then eat this peach. Arbor handed the leaves and peaches to his father and said to his mother, Mother, you too. I've thought about it. Father, your profound veins are damaged, causing your profound energy to flow out completely. But that doesn't mean that you won't be able to sense profound energy from now on. Arbor looked at his father with a serious expression and said, This leaf can increase a normal person's perception and profound strength. Who knows, it might even help you reconstruct your profound veins. Logically speaking, with Mother's condition, it is impossible for her to reopen her profound veins, but there is no harm in eating this leaf. At least it can strengthen her body. The couple stared blankly at their daughter. Especially Qiao Zhongbang, who listened to his daughter's explanation as if he was listening to a fairy tale. He couldn't help but stutter when he opened his mouth. Daughter, why you mean that this leaf can help father sense mystic energy again? It should be possible. Father, give it a try. If it's useful, it won't be too late to eat this peach. The energy contained in this peach was very rich. Although the amount wasn't much, it should be enough for father to advance. This little leaf was actually comparable to the pulse-regulating pill. Qiao Zhongbang didn't say anything else and swallowed the leaf in one gulp. Wei Ziqin also ate the leaf. Soon, Qiao Zhongbang looked at his daughter with joy at the turn of events. Jojo, father felt it. Father felt the recovery of profound energy, the awakening of profound veins. It seems that I can really reconstruct my profound veins. Arbor nodded. Father's condition is equivalent to the second time he has opened his profound veins and completely reconstructed his profound veins. Chapter 249. Her premonition wasn't wrong. The leaf she snatched from the sapling was indeed useful to Qiao Zhongbang. Daughter, father has to go into closed-door cultivation immediately. Take care of little Mo and arrange for him to rest. Qiao Zhongbang left this sentence and left in a hurry. Arbor couldn't help but want to roll her eyes. At such a critical juncture, father still couldn't abandon little Prince Mo and even instructed her to take good care of him, as if she had mistreated him. Mother, what do you think? Arbor looked towards her mother. However, Wei Ziqin had an odd expression as she looked back at Arbor and asked, Jojo, those mystic meridians. Are mystic meridians like thin and weak meridians? Can you feel a trace of special energy slowly swimming within? Arbor's eyes suddenly lit up. Mother! You've triggered your mystic meridians? Should be. Wei Ziqin nodded in astonishment. She knew her own body best. Back then, her family's miss had once said that she had no hope of triggering her mystic meridians in this lifetime and could only settle down as a normal person. Thus, she had never rashly asked to become a mystic cultivator. But today actually, on the side, Xiao whose mouth had long gaped open so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. Today was truly too dazzling. In the beginning, eldest uncle felt that his mystic meridians were recovering and had hope of successfully repairing them. Now, it was even more exaggerated. Eldest aunt, who had never cultivated mystic energy, actually said that she had successfully triggered her mystic meridians. Just that tiny leaf, a leaf. Qiao who hurriedly threw himself to Arbor's side and shook her arm, saying, eldest sister, do you still have that leaf? Give big brother one. Arbor couldn't help but laugh as she looked at the dignified child. You dummy, you're already a mystic cultivator. You don't need to sense mystic energy anymore. If you just want to increase your mystic energy and advance, eating peaches will do too. Peaches. Qiao who had a flash of inspiration and hurriedly picked up a peach. He stared dumbfoundedly at Xiao Lin, who had already finished half of it. Big sister, little sister has already eaten half of the peach. Why isn't she having any reaction? Arbor couldn't help but laugh when he saw how his sister wished she could bury her head in the peach. Little Lin is still too young. Opening her profound meridians now wouldn't do her any good. It's better to slow down and wait until you're 7 or 8 years old. Since he had yet to trigger his meridians or temper his body, he was naturally unable to absorb the energy contained within the peach juice. Therefore, this glutton was the true reckless waste of natural resources. Eating peaches was only to satisfy one's appetite. Sister. This peach. Xiao Lin's little hand, which was covered in peach juice, touched the second peach. She was reluctant to let go, but her eyes looked pitifully at her older sister. Arbor was about to die from her laughter. He shook his head and said, "Big sister doesn't want to eat anymore. I'll save it for you. But you're not allowed to eat it today. Save it for tomorrow after lunch." Xiao Lin Baobao's eyes suddenly lit up. She hurriedly reached out to take Tao Zi and smiled sweetly at her sister. "Thank you, sister. This is for you." Arbor stuffed the last peach into the crown prince's hands. He turned to his mother and said, "Mother, you should also return to your room and go into seclusion. Remember to eat the peach. It'll help you advance. I'll take Xiao Lin to sleep now." After sending his sister back to her bedroom and settling her down, classmate Arbor brought the crown prince out of the loft and pattered out. "Jojo, how about you owe me a gift in return first? When we meet again, I'll give it to you." The crown prince put away the peach with a grin. He followed behind the child with her short legs and slowly walked step by step. Gift in return. A certain person's handsome face appeared in front of the little fellow's eyes. She angrily turned her head and continued to patter forward. "Young man, you're taking advantage of me." Chapter 250. Under the night sky, a crimson light flashed past. As the light spread, the crown prince and Xiao Mu looked up at the same time. Arbor suddenly felt her body lighten. She looked helplessly at the crown prince, who had reached out to lift her up. She gritted her teeth. A certain child muttered, "I want to grow taller, but I won't let him carry me. Jojo, I will miss you very much." The crown prince pressed his forehead against hers and softly muttered, "Don't worry, I will remember your gift. When we meet again, I will definitely return it to you, okay?" "Okay, your head. What kind of gift is that? I don't really want it." "Okay." The crown prince agreed on behalf of a certain child with a smile. You can even talk to yourself to this extent. Shameless fellow, I am so angry." After a red light flashed past in midair, a slightly shorter black figure suddenly appeared behind the crown prince. It was a young boy of about 11 or 12 years old. He was completely different from Xiao Hu's dignified appearance. This young boy was cold and handsome, and his eyes were sharp. The strangest thing was the pair of eyes that he cast over. They were naturally different, and they were gold and red. Xiao Mu's face was filled with curiosity as she watched, completely ignoring the young man's taut, handsome face that refused to let anyone see him. "This is little 7. Prince Imo glanced at the child behind him with a headache. Look at this impatient child. She had already said that she would leave early tomorrow morning, but she couldn't wait to come. You are that flaming golden dragon." The child's eyes lit up as she sized up 7th Yan's head. The towering and terrifying dragon head had actually become a human head now. The young boy glanced at her and looked away with a snort. His attitude is bad. The child turned her head to look at the crown prince with a stoic face. She didn't even realize that she was complaining. "Can I beat him?" The crown prince almost laughed out loud. He shook his head regretfully. "You can't beat him." The child made an "oh" sound and muttered to herself, "If I can't beat him, then forget it." The crown prince, hearing this, the young boy turned to glare at her. This little brat meant that if she could beat him, she would give him a good beating. Audacious, audacious, impudent human. The young man turned his head and glared at the child. The child rolled his eyes and glared back at him, unwilling to be outdone. The crown prince held the child's waist with one hand and carried the child into the loft. Could it be that the auras of these two little fellows were incompatible? Why were they staring at each other like black-eyed chickens when they first met? It was better not to put the two of them together. "We can't stay over tonight." Mo Lien put the child on the bed and patted her forehead with regret. "Go to sleep. Be good and close your eyes. I'll leave after I see you fall asleep." Arbor. There's no way I can fall asleep if you stare at me like that." The crown prince patted her small body and said softly, "Don't worry, I won't forget the gift in return. We'll meet again soon. When that time comes." The crown prince flicked his sleeves. Xiao Mu vaguely smelled a faint calming medicinal fragrance. Her long eyelashes fluttered, and she actually fell asleep. Mo Yen sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her in a daze for a while under the cold moonlight through a thin veil. Then, he got up and left. The door to the room closed with a creak. The young man's tall and slender back was elongated under the cold moonlight. He looked lonely and elegant, like snow. Seventh Yan's figure flashed, and he transformed into a dragon and flew into the sky, circling and dancing under the cold moonlight. The crown prince leaped up and quietly stood on the dragon's back. He turned his head and gazed deeply at the small courtyard. Although he wasn't there, his heart yearned for it. We'll meet again, Jojo. The flaming golden dragon swept across the sky, illuminating the pitch-black horizon and sprinkling a sea of golden flames. Chapter 251. By the time Arbor woke up, it was already late in the morning. Hugging the thin blanket, she sat on the bed with a slightly lost expression. She actually slept quite well last night, but for some reason, she felt uneasy. In her hazy dream, she seemed to have seen the crown prince's figure leaving on a dragon. The youth's aloof figure turned into a red dot, and the farther he went, the more intense it became in her eyes. It was like a blazing inferno that could burn through thousands of layers of ice and thousands of miles of snowy peaks. He left, Duan Yu also ran away, master, eldest senior sister, and everyone else left. It seemed that in that instant the surrounding air quieted down, and she was the only one left in the world. A faint sense of loneliness lingered in her heart, unable to be brushed away for a long time. It was as if, in the past, she was also abandoned by someone important. Good morning, Master. Master is as beautiful as a flower today. Good, 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 good. The silence was completely broken by the golem's noisy voice. Sister. Xiao Lin used her chubby body to knock open the door with a bang and gave her a big grin. Arbor jumped down from the bed and swept away the gloom in her heart. She pulled her sister's hand and said with a smile, "Go wash up." Master. Master, wait for me. The golem bounced and chased after the two sisters. Xiao Lin looked back curiously. Sister, that little doll can talk. That's right, he's called Big Bao. Not only can he talk, but he can also do many things. Arbor half-carried the chubby Xiao Lin and led her over the tall threshold to walk down the attic. When she pushed open the attic's door, a ray of sunlight shone in from outside, so warm that she couldn't help but squint her eyes. Arbor paused and took out a common communication jade tablet for the hidden pavilion and night pavilion from her pocket. A line of words quickly appeared on it, reporting to Miss, Royal Guard Nian from the vassal king of an Anan's estate has arrived at Guanlan City and is currently rushing back to the vassal king's estate. Arbor took out a talisman pen and left a line of words on the communication jade tablet, continue to keep an eye on him. Report back immediately once the Royal Guard meets with that commandery princess. Sister, what are you writing? Xiao Lin blinked curiously. Sister is writing about how to punish bad people. The corners of Arbor's mouth slowly curled up into a sneer. With a swipe of his hand, he grabbed Nian Kuei's strand of life soul. The vassal king of an Nan's estate's Hui-in, right? Do you think you'll be fine just like that? I've never met you before, but you dared to harm me. It seems that there's no need for you to exist anymore. Baby Chow's section break, the galloping horses galloped rapidly on the main road of Guanlan City, startling the pedestrians on both sides of the road and forcing them to give way. The people who lived in the royal capital had long since recognized the attire of the high officials in the royal residence. When they saw the royal guards of the vassal king of an Nan's estate galloping past, no one dared to say anything and obediently dodged to the side. The members of the vassal king of an Nan's estate were used to being arrogant in Guanlan City, so no one dared to offend them. Otherwise, they would definitely suffer. Nian Kuei's face was dark as he gripped the reins tightly with both hands and rushed back to the Wang Fu. When the horse arrived at the entrance of the estate, Nian Kuei leaped off the horse and tossed the reins to the manservant before hastily heading inside. He had to immediately report to the commandery princess that His Highness the Crown Prince had actually left the capital in the middle of the night to meet with that lowly commoner girl in private. He had even extracted a strand of Nian Kuei's soul for that girl. Utterly abominable. He had to ask the commandery princess to step in and take back that strand of his soul. Chapter 252. When Nian Kuei was led inside, commandery Princess Hui An was looking at herself in the mirror and trying on 2 new pieces of jewelry. Hearing the footsteps, the commandery princess did not even look up and asked nonchalantly, "Is it done? How is the little bitch's reaction after eating the medicine I gave her?" Nian Kuei's expression was a bit unsightly, and he suddenly knelt down on one knee. "Commandery princess, this subordinate was incompetent." Commandery Princess Hui An was startled, and she abruptly slammed her hand on the dressing table. She angrily glared at the kneeling Nian Kuei through the mirror. "You mean, you failed?" Nian Kuei was a level 7 body cultivator. How could he fail when he was sent to a small town to deal with a commoner? Hui An could not accept this kind of failure at all. She glared at Nian Kuei coldly and angrily. What exactly happened? Nian Kuei did not even dare to look up. He organized his words and quickly reported the matter. Hui An's face alternated between green and white. She pondered for a long time before coldly asking with a dark face, "You're saying that Brother Crown Prince cares about a 7 or 8-year-old brat?" Nian Kuei nodded repeatedly. "That's right. His Highness the Crown Prince secretly left the capital for this girl, so commandery princess must already know about this. You ran into Brother Crown Prince in Shizhou City." Hui An's delicate face was so dark that water could drip from it. "Yes. Good. Good, good." Commandery Princess Hui An clenched her teeth and cheered repeatedly. She instantly broke a jade bracelet woven with gold threads in her hand. Brother Crown Prince treated her like she was nothing and had never treated her well. She observed that his usual behavior kept people at arm's length, so she thought that he treated all women the same as he treated her. He was cold, noble, and unpredictable, like a clear stream in the mountains. He was so aloof that no woman could get close to him. However, she did not expect him to do something so outrageous. He abandoned state affairs, left the capital overnight, and disappeared for so many days just to see a commoner girl from a small town. She could not understand. She could not accept or agree with him. Brother Crown Prince's actions broke the fragile heart of a young girl. Hui An abruptly slapped the broken jade bracelet in her hand and said with gritted teeth, "Nian Kuei, I want you to bring another group of people to Shizhou City. This time, I'm going to kill this bitch. She doesn't know what's good for her and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Did she think that a slut like her would be able to become a phoenix one day? I will never let her get what she wants. Princess." The Crown Prince extracted a strand of my soul and gave it to the young lady. "I'm afraid I'm not up to the task. Princess, please help me plead with the Crown Prince and ask for my soul back." Hui An's eyes suddenly widened. From the mirror, she could see that guard Nian, who had been chattering, suddenly swelled up like a bulging ball. "No!" Commandery Princess Hui An simply could not imagine the impact of a 7th-layer body cultivator's self-detonation at such a close distance. She took a step forward, intending to escape. Nian Kuei's body suddenly exploded. The loud noise even traveled out of the vassal king of Nan's estate and shook half of the capital. Whether it was the peddlers setting up their stalls, the people chatting loudly with their neighbors, or the hurried passers-by on the street, all of them froze in that instant and looked back in shock in the direction of the vassal king of Nan's estate. The earth trembled continuously from the tremors. The terrifying impact of the explosion destroyed more than half of the commandery princess's boudoir in the center of the vassal king of Nan's estate. Even many trees in the back garden were forcefully snapped. Chapter 253. In the southern study of the Eastern Palace. A heavy atmosphere spread among the officials. The officials looked at each other as they watched His Highness the Crown Prince, who was reading memorials with his head lowered, sitting behind the desk. No one wanted to be the first to speak up. I heard that everyone has been quite lively recently. Quite a few memorials to impeach me have been sent to the Queen Dowager. The Crown Prince looked up at everyone as he flipped through the memorials. The Marquis of Stability, Zhao Sheng, stood outside the crowd and looked up at the sky with an aloof expression. He was taut and didn't say a word. Behind the Marquis of Stability was naturally a group of people from the Crown Prince's faction led by him. They were all shooting murderous looks at their colleagues around them. Who told you to be smug and jump around? Humph. The Marquis of Jiajing, Su Pingyong, stood next to Zhao Sheng and subconsciously wiped the sweat on his forehead with his sleeve. Censor Zhao, Censor Huang, I heard that the two of you sent 18 memorials to impeach the Queen Dowager in the past few days. The imperial censors led by you have truly worked hard and rendered great service. The Crown Prince tossed his brush and asked coldly, how should we thank you? Your Highness, please calm your anger. The officials trembled as they knelt in salute. Censor Zhao was nearly 70 years old and his temples were grizzled. He knelt in front of the desk with his back straight and his head held high as he saluted. Your Highness, the Crown Prince set aside a pile of state affairs and left the capital for so many days without saying a word. This old official has indeed initiated a joint effort to invite many imperial censors to impeach Your Highness. If Your Highness wants to blame us, this old official is willing to bear all the responsibility and accept any beating or punishment. Even if you want this old official to resign and leave the capital, this old official still has to say it. Your Highness's actions are indeed inappropriate. The great king went to Mount Hong to pray for the people and entrusted state affairs to Your Highness. How can Your Highness act rashly and ignore state affairs? The Crown Prince stared at the old man for a while before snorting. The old officials who were on good terms with Censor Zhao all broke out in cold sweat for the old man. This Crown Prince looked gentle and kind on the surface, but in reality, he was very eccentric when it came to handling matters. It was very likely that he had secretly dealt with this old man. He even dared to make a move on the great king's favored consort, let alone an old man. Let them take a look. Crown Prince unexpectedly didn't get angry. Instead, he tossed out this cold sentence. Xiao 11Z immediately stepped forward and handed out something like a list, as well as a blueprint. The ministers passed it around and read it. Everyone was surprised. So His Highness received news that a large amount of supplies had appeared in Qinghe town. That's why he immediately led his men there. The soldiers from the south camp sent by His Highness the Crown Prince will be able to transport the food and supplies back in 2 days. Everyone was overjoyed, but they also looked at each other. After carefully looking at the blueprint, their faces became more and more ashamed. This monarch has seen the construction of Shijiao City's defenses. Based on this foundation, we plan to first build large-scale fortifications in the various major cities, with the capital as the center, and expand outwards. This process should take several years, but once completed, it will definitely be beneficial to the people and the country. As the Crown Prince spoke, everyone crowded around the blueprint and scrambled to read it. A moment later, the group of officials hurriedly knelt and begged for forgiveness, especially the old officials who had impeached the Crown Prince countless times. Their faces were filled with shame. So it turned out the Crown Prince had left the capital to do something big. See, without a word, the food had been transported back. After inspecting the construction of Shijiao City's defenses, he also had a plan for the future defenses of Mo Kingdom for the next several years. This subject is ashamed. The Crown Prince raised his phoenix eyes and coldly swept his gaze over the group of officials. Rise. This monarch hopes that all of you will think carefully before you do anything in the future. Don't be hot-headed and be used by others for nothing. This subject was muddle-headed. Before Censor Zhao could kneel and beg for forgiveness, the Crown Prince waved his hand at him. Censor Zhao was about to speak with shame on his face when a loud sound suddenly spread through half of Guanlan City. Mo Lian's lips curled into a smile. Chapter 254. Your Highness, Your Highness. The steward eunuch, Gong Chang-en, ran inside in a panic and rolled to the ground. Something big has happened, Your Highness. Just now, someone from the vassal king of Nan's estate self-detonated and attacked Commandery Princess Huiyin. Apparently, she's heavily injured. The vassal king of Nan has sent people to the palace to invite several royal physicians to the estate to save her. The crown prince's expression was indifferent. He only nodded slightly and waved his hand to dismiss the steward eunuch. All the officials looked at each other without saying anything. He Qizheng, I'll leave the construction of the fortifications to you. The crown prince looked at a dark-skinned man in his 50s. This person was the right assistant minister of the Ministry of Works, He Qizheng, He Tian's father. He Qizheng cupped his hands in acknowledgement, his square face brimming with righteousness. Everyone secretly looked back at the Minister of Works's fecal face and silently gulped. The crown prince directly bypassed the minister and handed the task to the right assistant minister, He Qizheng. His attitude was simply too obvious. Just as they said, don't go overboard. Besides, our crown prince wasn't someone to be trifled with. This lord's temperament was perverse and extremely straightforward. Moreover, the connections in his hands were perhaps much more than they imagined. The Marquis of Jiajing, Su Pingyong, who usually liked to smooth things over, wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He had a premonition that since the Minister of Works and the left assistant minister were jumping around so fiercely, it would be their turn to suffer next. In a flash, the officials all withdrew. The crown prince flipped through the memorial to the throne next to him and slightly raised his head to look at Huifeng, who had swiftly entered. How is it? Reporting to Your Highness. Huifeng cupped his hands and quickly reported, Commandery Princess Huiyin was sitting in front of the dressing mirror at the time. After Nian Kuei self-detonated at close range, Commandery Princess Huiyin was injured by the lens, and her face was unrecognizable from the explosion. She lost her sight in her left eye. She actually didn't die. The crown prince's voice was slightly surprised. His little fellow was a black-hearted and ruthless little thing. She deliberately made Nian Kuei return to Huiyin's side before crushing his soul and causing it to self-detonate without hesitation. It was inevitable that Huiyin would suffer the consequences of her own actions. However, the crown prince didn't expect that Huiyin wouldn't die from the explosion at such a close range. The princess used a 4th-level defensive profound weapon at the critical moment. Huifeng said, although she still can't withstand Nian Kuei's self-detonation, her life is saved. Of course, that level 4 defensive profound artifact was definitely completely destroyed and could no longer be used. What did the vassal king of Nan say? The crown prince grabbed a cup of warm tea and held it loosely in his hand, his gaze incomparably sharp. The vassal king of Nan has just dispatched several hidden guards out of the capital. Deal with it. The crown prince de-emphasized, if the vassal king of Nan is smart, he should know what to investigate and what not to investigate. The crown prince's voice was clearly so indifferent, but Huifeng's heart inexplicably tightened. If the vassal king of Nan dared to provoke His Highness the Crown Prince, that would absolutely be an extremely unwise move. Your Highness. How should we deal with the matter of the Minister of Works and the left assistant minister inciting the imperial censors? We feel that he is somewhat unfit for the position of minister, so it would be more appropriate for him to abdicate the position to a worthy person. The Crown Prince's expression was cold and apathetic. Last time, the youngest brother of the Minister of Works family obtained a lucrative position from the great king. Their entire Huang family profited quite a bit from the construction of the canals in Meilong City. Huifeng immediately understood. This subordinate will immediately instruct the Night Pavilion members to organize the previously collected information and hand it to those imperial censors. The Crown Prince's phoenix eyes flashed, and a faint smile flitted across his pursed lips. Chapter 255. The next day, the youngest brother of the Minister of Works took advantage of his position to send all the details of the corruption and fraud case to the imperial censors in multiple copies. The imperial censors, led by Censor Zhao, all exploded in anger. They sent impeachment memorials to the crown prince as if they didn't cost anything. The Minister of Works was caught unprepared by this matter and was too overwhelmed to fend for himself, so he naturally didn't have the energy to find trouble with the crown prince. On the other side, the crown prince sat in the study and quietly listened to Huifeng's report. The vassal king of Nan personally led a team to escort the commandery princess out of the city today. He said he was going to find the ghost physician of the ghost sect to try his best to save the commandery princess's face. Huifeng calmly said, but the imperial physicians also said that even if the commandery princess tried his best to save her face, her eyes wouldn't be able to be saved. The crown prince nodded, no longer in the mood to listen to Huifeng's matter with a disinterested expression. The hidden guards from the vassal king of Nan's estate who went out of the city to investigate the reason for Nian Kuei's self-detonation have all been disposed of by the hidden pavilion. The vassal king of Nan probably understood your highness's intentions and didn't send anyone else to investigate. The crown prince sneered. At least he's tactful. If he dared to set his sights on the little girl again, he wouldn't mind sending this sworn brother of the great king off on his way. Your highness. The provisions delivered by the South Camp's soldiers just arrived this morning. Very good. Have Song Yuan from the Ministry of Revenue properly arrange this batch of supplies. The crown prince stood up and walked outside as he coldly asked, how has the great king been doing in Mount Hong recently? Huifeng lowered his head, and the corner of his mouth twitched. The great king really isn't doing well. With your highness making things difficult for the great king at every turn, it'd be strange if the great king was happy. 12th Prince, be careful. His Highness the Crown Prince is discussing politics in the southern study. You can't barge in so rudely. The wet nurse's anxious voice came from afar. Big brother, big brother. A small purple-red figure strenuously stepped over the tall study threshold and rolled toward his big brother's feet. He hugged his big brother's thigh and cried, big brother, big brother. Grand Tutorly hit my study partner, Song Xiaotai. Big brother, you have to stand up for me. Hit him for me. Hit him. Huifeng, the crown prince looked speechlessly at his younger brother who was rolling and crying at his feet. He raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man with a pale face who lifted his green robe and bowed in greeting. Your humble servant greets your highness the crown prince. Grand Tutor, please rise. The crown prince massaged his temples with a headache. He scooped up a certain brat who was clinging to his leg and refused to let go. Holding the brat on his leg, he looked helplessly at the elegant Grand Tutor in green robes. Grand Tutor, what's going on? Without waiting for Grand Tutor Li to speak, the 5-year-old brat, Mou, took the initiative to complain, Big brother. It's him. He hit my study partner, Song Xiaotai. He was being unreasonable. I don't want to study anymore. Huifeng. His little highness is testing his big brother's patience. Grand Tutor Li is the most knowledgeable person in Imperial College. You even taught me, your big brother. The crown prince lifted the child up in exasperation and looked with amusement at the oval-shaped red bun face from crying. What did you do that the Grand Tutor is punishing you and even implicating the third young master of the Minister of Revenue? Your Highness the Crown Prince, it's Xiaotia's fault. It was Xiaotai who was playful and took his 12th Highness to skip class. The 7-year-old Song Xiaotai lowered his head in shame. Mou immediately jumped up and covered his head with one hand. He shook his head and said, Big brother, your head hurts from studying every day. Can I not study anymore? The Crown Prince smiled gently at Mou. Not only will you have a headache today, but your hands will also hurt and your butt will hurt even more. Someone, bring me a ferule. Xiao 11Z covered his mouth with his hand. Chapter 256. Little Mou's hand was hit twice by His Highness the Crown Prince, and he cried for a full 15 minutes. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he stopped wailing and sniffled as he wiped his tears with a small handkerchief. At the same time, he secretly peeked at his big brother, who was reviewing memorials behind the desk. Give his 12th Highness some water to moisten his throat. The Crown Prince put down his brush and instructed coldly. Little Mou felt a prickling pain in his red hand when he held the cup, and his tears fell pitter-patter. When Big Brother got angry, he didn't even look at Little Brother. So scary. Little Mou shuffled his little butt and jogged to the Crown Prince's side. He hugged his thigh and begged to be petted, whining pitifully, Big Brother, I was wrong. I'll definitely study hard in the future and won't drag Xiao Tai out to play anymore. I won't contradict the Grand Tutor anymore. I'll definitely be obedient and won't cause trouble. I'll be a good child. Don't be angry, Big Brother. The Crown Prince glanced back at him and reached out to place him on the desk. He looked at Little Mou with a serious expression and said, You have to remember. Big Brother's burden will be handed over to you sooner or later. In the future, Mother will also need you to take care of her. You have to be a responsible man. He muttered to himself for a while before saying softly, Big Brother will leave sooner or later. Little Mou hugged his big brother's arm and shouted, No, I won't let Big Brother leave. Big Brother, where are you going? Take you, or with you. And Mother Empress, let's go together. There was no way to communicate with a little brat. The Crown Prince flicked the little brat's head. In 2 days, Big Brother will test your homework. If it's still a mess, just you wait. You made your Big Brother lose face in front of the Grand Tutor. Big Brother will definitely make you lose even more face. Little Mou's round face was completely scrunched up. He originally wanted to pretend to cry, but when his gaze fixed on a corner of the desk, his voice abruptly stopped. The little brat crawled forward on the desk, his little hand reaching for a fresh and red peach at the corner of the desk. Big Brother, is this for you, or to eat? Not really. Prince Mou mercilessly took the peach from Mou's hand. His face was calm, as if he did not realize that he was bullying a child. Mou's eyes suddenly widened as he turned his head to look at his elder brother in disbelief. Usually, if there was anything delicious or fun, Big Brother would give it to him. As long as he asked Big Brother would definitely give it to him. Why didn't she give him Tao, or today? This must be a fake Big Brother. Big Brother, I want to eat peaches. Mou continued to work hard for his own welfare. No. The Crown Prince stood up and locked the delicious-looking pink and tender peach into a jade box. Mou's eyes instantly widened. Big Brother was so stingy as to lock a peach in a jade box. She wouldn't even spare him a glance. Big Brother doesn't like you, anymore. This piece of news was like a bolt from the blue, reverberating in Mou's mind. The child suddenly felt that there was nothing left to live for. He collapsed on the desk with his arms and legs spread out. When Mo Lien turned around and saw the little brat's state, he almost burst out laughing. He walked over and nudged his little brother to the side of the desk. Don't obstruct Big Brother's governance. Big Brother, why can't you eat that peach? The little brat inquired. Chapter 257. Prince Mo completely ignored his younger brother's paralyzed appearance and chuckled softly as he flipped through the memorial in his hand. Because Darling Chow gave this to your big brother. Mou scrambled up from the desk and blinked, looking like he wanted to get to the bottom of this. Who's Darling Chow? She's 2 years older than you. She's a little girl. Prince Mo didn't even look up. Then what about her studies? Has she studied as much as I have? Mou sat on the Crown Prince's desk and continued to ask curiously. The Crown Prince looked up and glanced at him with a smile. She has studied. She's not like you, who has to be chased and beaten by teachers all day long. Mou was unconvinced. The Grand Tutor also praised me for my talent in studying. If I worked a little harder, I'd be even more impressive. Oh, is that so? The Crown Prince smiled sardonically. Of course. Mou simply crawled up and stood on the Crown Prince's desk. He put his hands on his hips and faced his big brother. Big brother, if darling Xiao doesn't study well, will you also beat her? Hui Feng felt like the brothers' conversation was hilarious. I won't. The crown prince set down a memorial and picked up another one. He lowered his eyes and continued to flip through it, completely ignoring his younger brother's stupefied expression. Mou huffed and shouted, "Why? Big brother, aren't you treating her too differently?" Mou was very unconvinced. You're a boy, and she's a girl. You can take a beating, but she can't. The crown prince had an indifferent expression. Pfft. Xiao 11Z really couldn't hold it in and sneaked a look at Mou, who looked like he'd been dealt a blow with his large, dark eyes. Big brother, you're biased. Mou was angry. He tilted his head in thought and suddenly asked, Big brother, is darling Xiao my sister-in-law? If she wasn't his sister-in-law, Mou couldn't figure out why his big brother treated her so well. How could she not be beaten if she didn't study well? Unlike him, not only would he be scolded by the grand tutor if he didn't study well, but he would also be beaten by his big brother. Just thinking about it made him feel like you was adopted. Prince Mo's hand that was flipping through the memorial paused for a moment. He raised his head to look at Mou's solemn expression and couldn't help but laugh. You've become smarter. Mou suddenly realized that when Big Brother said this, there seemed to be the light of shattered stars flickering in his eyes. He seemed to be in an extremely good mood. Little Mou hurriedly jumped into his big brother's arms. Big brother, when can I see sister-in-law? Do you still have any more peaches with you? Will she be willing to let me eat it? When Hui Feng heard this as he walked out the door, he almost tripped and left with an exasperated expression. We will meet. The Crown Prince murmured softly, his voice as gentle as water. Crown Prince's family division line darling Xiao spent the past 2 months comfortably. Without any unnecessary people to disturb her, she would spend the day with her family and go into seclusion to practice martial arts at night. She even asked City Lord Gu to buy blank talisman paper from all over the city. In this way, he managed to purchase more than 500 blank talisman papers and exchanged them for 50 kilograms of rice. The 2 talisman shop owners were unable to contain their joy. In the middle of September, Mother gave birth a few days earlier than in her previous life. The birth process was smoother than darling Xiao had imagined. In this life, Mother's health was very good, and she had also entered the ranks of mystic cultivators recently. Although she was only a level 2 mystic cultivator at the moment, her constitution was naturally much better than normal people's. In addition, the Qiao family had made early plans this time. The midwife had been brought over to live in the Qiao family a few days in advance, waiting for Mother's fetal movements so that she could deliver the baby at any time. As a result, there really weren't any accidents. When the midwife who delivered the baby carried little brother out with a smile on her face to announce the good news, Arbor's gentle gaze landed on little brother's swaddling clothes. Xiao Sen, we meet again. Chapter 258. For the past 2 months, Arbor's cultivation had remained at the initial success stage of level 4 Mystic Cultivator and hadn't had any major breakthroughs. Entry, gradual success, initial success, phenomenal success, and peak could be said to be the common cultivation stages for Mystic Cultivators. Mystic Cultivators below level 7 might not place too much importance on these small stages of cultivation. But as one's cultivation advanced to level 8, level 9, and even level 10 great Mystic Cultivators, even if it was just a small difference between entry and gradual success, it would be a world of difference in strength. Since her cultivation hadn't increased, Arbor had been focusing on drawing talismans for the past few days. She had drawn 200 to 300 blank talismans that City Lord Gu had collected for her, and they were basically all auxiliary talismans. Today, she planned to draw a few aura-concealing talismans that she had newly learned. Beginner-level talisman, aura-concealing talisman, reduced one's cultivation by 5 levels and maintained it for 1 month. This talisman was rather interesting. After Arbor drew 20 aura-concealing talismans, she used one and immediately discovered that her mystic energy was completely covered by the aura-concealing talisman. Now, even if she stood in front of her father and second uncle, They would be surprised to discover that they would no longer be able to sense any energy fluctuations from her body. She was just like an ordinary child without any cultivation at all. Arbor lowered her small head and continued to draw another 100 or so summoning talismans at a rapid pace. She stored the remaining 120 blank talismans in her purple storage talisman and kept them close to her body. She raised her head very happily and massaged her sore shoulders. Looking at the sky, it was already close to dusk. Her talisman drawing speed had increased by quite a bit, and she had drawn more than 150 talismans in one afternoon. Especially this kind of super-standard beginner-level summoning talisman. After failing to draw it several times, she became more and more proficient in the later stages. Of the 108 summoning talismans, 28 blue summoning talismans were drawn in the later stages. Arbor was abnormally happy. Grabbing a summoning talisman in her palm, Arbor propped up her chin with one hand and pondered. Should she try activating the talisman? The last time she activated the talisman, she got a weak chicken. It left a huge psychological shadow on her. Arbor ran down the attic and circled to the small garden in the back to stand still. She silently inhaled and lowered her head to look at the yellow summoning talisman in her palm. She felt that since her rebirth, she still had some luck. How could he summon the same weak chicken twice in a row? That's impossible. Therefore, it was better to give it a try. Xiao Mu once again took a deep breath. She stretched out two fingers with a face full of righteousness and touched the yellow talisman lightly. After the yellow light dissipated, a goo sound was heard. Arbor's first thought was, why does this sound so familiar? Then, she glared at the thing that had spread its short wings and was rushing towards her with a goo sound. Xiao Mu and Xiao Mu's dark eyes were about to fall out of their sockets in shock. Oh my god! Why is it this one again? Weak chicken. Ah! What kind of ill-fated relationship was this? However, at a glance, this chicken was much taller than the first time he saw it. Its shape was somewhat similar to that of a young peacock. Furthermore, its feathers were more luxurious than when he first saw it. The feathers at the tip of its tail were much longer and emitted a greenish-blue halo. But no matter how much it changed, it couldn't change the fact that it was still a weak chicken. Deep breaths, don't be angry, don't be angry. Calm down, I'm not a child anymore, I'm an adult. I'm an adult, I can't make life difficult for a chicken. Ah, I'm so angry. Xiao Mu suddenly exploded. She pulled out a knife from somewhere and chased after the chicken to chop it. You scoundrel, why is it you again? I want to summon a beast, do you understand? Why is a weak chicken like you rushing to the front? Go back. Go back.